Half a day, everybody joining us today. This is day 3, our final live virtual town hall with all our candidates. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Thank you for the candidates joining here. Without further delay, I'd like to introduce our 2022 president, Ms. Liz Duenas.
Good morning, everyone. And I'd like to welcome Peter and Doug for appearing for this particular format. And our over 600 members want to hear your points of view with the different issues with the list of questions that were provided to you. So again, thank you, and we appreciate your feedback through this process, but it'll definitely allow our 600 plus membership to decide who they will vote for. Thank you.
At this time, I'm Monty McDowell. I'm the Guam Association of Realtors Legislative Committee Chairperson. And with me running the election committee here is John Duenas. I'm going to go over some housekeeping rules, but first I'd like to say that it's an honor having both of you spend some time with us. And I think Guam's in a great position, no matter who we elect, very intelligent people, very caring for our island. And we're just delighted that you're vying for this position of Attorney General. The rules of the road here will be all candidates will be asked to launch their live video feed. You've done that. You will be asked to stay on muted mode if not speaking. Your name will be called upon by the host. To be able to proceed with your remarks or in answering the question, please unmute yourself at this time. You will each be provided 3 minutes for your welcome remarks to include the full name, brief background why you are running for the position. You will each be provided no more than 2 minutes to answer each question addressed to you. The same question may be asked and answered by the other candidate. All answers must be germane to the question being asked. Other comments, feedbacks, clarifications may be entertained by the panelists considering time availability. This is a town hall. Just answers to the question. This is not a debate format. In the 2 minutes, when there's 15 minutes left, the background of our executive officer, Peggy, will turn yellow. Again, that's 15 seconds left. And when it turns red, your time is up and you'll be muted. To ensure that we are able to keep with the time and allow others opportunity to answer, we will mute any candidate unable to stay within the 2-minute time frame. The chairman will determine if a break period is necessary. Candidates will only be addressing the panelists and not each other. And I'll stop there at the end. There'll be 3 minutes for you for closing remarks. Again, your name, and why you believe you're deserving of the Guam Association of Realtors support. I'd like to turn it over to the chairman of the election committee, John Duenas, for a few words.
Thank you, candidates. It's heartwarming to see that you are here to participate. Thank you, Mr. Moylan, Attorney Moylan, for rescheduling whatever you had that was in conflict. And thank you, Peter, for being very responsive to our questions. We look forward to your answers, and good luck on your campaign, and whoever comes out the winner, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we start, I'm going to begin with Mr. Douglas Moylan for his welcoming remarks for up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Board of Realtors. It's an honor to participate in your forum. I think that because this is political speech, that it's the most important for the public, but especially for the Realtors Association. I believe that I have the most to offer the voters on Guam, which includes the Realtors Association members. I was a practicing attorney before the judiciary, the legislative, and the executive branches. I was honored to serve as the first elected Attorney General from 2003 to 2007. We faced a lot of issues that included establishing the parameters of this first elected office created by the Organic Act. I also have 30 years of experience, which is the most of all the candidates. I believe that being an attorney, like being a doctor or other professional, the more years that you have under your belt, so to speak, the wiser and the better decisions that you can make because of your life experiences. I hope to offer a rounded approach if I serve a second term as Attorney General. There was a lot that was learned in the first term. A lot of it, as I said, was dedicated towards establishing the powers and duties of the office. And I think now this term, given that we've had about 16 years that have passed, there's a lot of issues that the Attorney General can benefit this community, especially an experienced Attorney General. Prosecution and the crime problem, obviously, without question, is the most problematic facing our community. Although I presume that most of you deal in the civil area, the crimes effect upon civil practices, business, and anything else in the civil realm is detrimental. We spoke a little bit about it at the Chamber of Commerce on the businesses that are affected. You guys deal directly with the property issues and how property values and everything else associated with criminality can affect your business, as well as the profitability and just the mere functioning of it. The other candidates, I believe, are soft on crime. The writing candidate, I believe, will speak to his experience in that area. But I offer a different brand of leadership. I think that's clear. I was and continue to be the toughest AG on crime. That is my political platform. That is my reputation. As much as people like throwing stones at our first 4 years there, I don't think anyone has says that we weren't tough on crime. I will work with the courts, the juries, as well as the governor in order to ensure that the criminal justice system operates smoothly. I believe that people want to see the punishment and the protection of the crime victims, as well as the deterrence. I don't think that rehabilitation, which this current AG seems to be focused upon, is what people really want in our community. I think the criminals need to be shown what will happen if they remain criminals, if they don't change their way of life. And at that, I am number one on the ballot, and I would respectfully request your support as a Attorney General candidate. As I said, I believe I have the most to offer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. We'll go next to Mr. Peter Santos.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for hosting us in this forum. First, before I talk about myself, I'd like to congratulate the Guam Association of Realtors for being 52 years old, having an existence, since 1970. And I appreciate that you guys are professionals, and you guys also have a code of conduct, and you guys have a threefold mission of ensuring that your members act ethically and also act in unison and also promote the American dream. So with that being said, I am Pete Santos. I am from the village of Agate, and I have 30 years as well, but all my years of service is public service. I know Monty in the therapeutic courts. I've seen him as a huge supporter there with the, while I was a prosecutor and even while I was a defense attorney. What do I bring to the table that's different? We talked about leadership. To me, the most important thing about leadership is being self-aware. And then also in line with that, you have to have situational awareness and situational understanding. And I believe that the current Attorney General lacks all three of those. And that's why we are faced with the problems that are plaguing our island today. I do have experience being a chief of administrative law in the Army, and we dealt with real estate issues, we dealt with procurement issues, we dealt with contract issues, and also other type of administrative law. And we had a system there that I don't see happening at the Attorney General's office. I've spoken to several realtors. I know several realtors. And one of the things that is plaguing the real estate industry is, of course, lack of timely and accurate services from the Attorney General's office. And there's no reason for that. There shouldn't be any reason for that. The civil division actually has the highest paid attorneys, the most experienced attorneys over there. With a few tweaks of the system and the processes over there, we can provide better and timely services to everyone. Because, you know, when someone is pursuing the American dream, it is a huge endeavor involving not only realtors, but all the brokers and the banks and the contractors, the construction industry. And that is already a huge enough, you know, plate to deal with. But what exacerbates the issues is when you don't have timely and accurate legal services. And so I bring to the table my experience of 30 years of public service and my love for this island. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santos. I appreciate that. So we will begin with our questions from our legislative committee. And briefly, I'd like to reintroduce our overall chair, Mr. Monty McDowell, our election subcommittee chairman, Mr. John Duenas, and the members of the legislative committee for 2022. We have Mr. Carl Peterson, Ms. Fabian Respicio, Mr. Randall Relamas, Mr. Chris Felix, Ms. Claire Delgado, and Ms. Joanne Ige. We will start with the first question with Mr. Monty McDowell. You will have up to 2 minutes to answer these questions. We will also ask the rest of the members of the legislative committee should they want to follow up after you've rendered your question, and you will be given another up to 2 minutes to answer those follow-up questions, should there be any. Thank you, and we'll start with Mr. Monty McDowell.
Thank you, Peggy. Again, I'm appreciative that you've taken time to be with the Guam Association of Realtors. This subject, and we're going to basically read the questions that you've responded to in writing already. I'd like to preface the first one concerning drugs to the fact that in 2002, the Judiciary of Guam started the juvenile adult family treatment courts to assist in dealing with drugs. And I represent my company and the Guam Chamber of Commerce for 20 years in it. Unfortunately, I wanted to see people be rehabilitated and we get rid of this drug problem. But every time we graduate a dozen, we got 20 coming in the back door. So it seems to be a never-ending problem. I can tell you from a personal experience in my company, I have 200 employees. One day we interviewed 14 people for a job and 12 of them failed the drug test. That's where we sit on our tropical, beautiful, luxurious island of Guam. One time I was interviewing somebody on my K57 radio show that I had years ago who was a recovering drug addict. And I said, I think 90% of crime in Guam is predicated comes from drug usage or selling or distribution. And they thought I was wrong. They thought 100% of crime in Guam was a result in and around drugs. The question that you've already answered in writing, but we want to hear from you verbally for our dozens and dozens of realtors that are listening in here. Drug abuse is rampant on our island and is no doubt a cause of extensive criminal activity, acts of violence against the public, homelessness, family violence, and gradual destruction of the family unit and businesses. The Attorney General is Guam's chief law enforcement officer and is in a powerful position to enforce our laws on crime with the goal of providing a safe and secure environment in our island community. As Attorney General, what would you do to address the problem of drug abuse on our island? Please explain.
Thank you for the question. I will start with Mr. Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell. The statistics show that there's a 55% failure rate in people that are being treated for drugs through the adult drug court program. The judiciary, I believe, updated or referenced that figure in 2017. I'm not aware of any current statistics that are showing how the therapy approach has been working. But as an attorney general, we need to recognize the post at which we would occupy in that position. When I occupied it, as you said, it's the chief law enforcement officer. It's not the chief social worker. It's not the chief of Department of Public Health. It's not the chief of the Guam Behavioral or any other therapeutic positions in this government. So as the chief law enforcement officer, I need to make sure that not just the morale among the other law enforcement officers, that actually do the groundwork is preserved, but that the legislative mandate that these people be taken before the judges and the juries and be found either innocent or guilty, and then the appropriate punishment applied. Now, since 2002, the legislature created the Adult Drug Court Program, and that's what I was just referencing. Their statistics are, in my opinion, not good. What that means is that when these people get out again, they're creating crime victims. They're hurting you, me, our loved ones, and everyone else. Opposite side, and I'm sure this current Attorney General would emphasize that there are friends, families, and so forth. The problem with meth drug addiction is it destroys everything about you. That person that you loved, you grew up with, that worked with you, no longer is that same person. It truly transforms them psychologically. Going back to the Attorney General, no Attorney General, in my knowledge, has ever been able to solve the United States drug problem. It's coming full circle back from this therapeutic approach to isolate them from hurting people because there's too many of them. If I become the Attorney General, I will ensure that these people are brought before the juries if they're eligible for the ADC, get them that opportunity. But if they fail that, they're going to be facing DOC. It's not the AG's concern about beds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Peter Santos.
Yes, again, I talked about being self-aware, situationally aware, and having situational understanding. Now, drug abuse will be a part of every community. We have to face the harsh reality, all right? And drug treatment does work. However, it matters on how well it's employed. I've gone to the National Adult Drug Court trainings, and one of the big, huge themes when you go there is they talk about how prosecution is not really a team player, how prosecution is not really collaborative in the effort, and how that hampers all the efforts. And so it's not an us against them approach, right? This is a community issue. But getting back to how do we solve this problem? As a former law enforcement officer, I know what makes a dent. What makes a dent is drug abuse prevention as well as interdiction. We have one advantage on this island is that we're surrounded by water. So if we take the resources that we have and use them correctly and smartly, and what I mean is by developing human intelligence and getting information, because right now preventing drugs from coming in is like a needle in a haystack unless you know what you're looking for, right? Unless you have the proper tools and information to target more effectively. And so if we develop and partner with our local and federal resources, then we can more smartly prevent it from coming in. So the answer is, to me, continue with rehabilitation efforts, improve the rehabilitation efforts, also add in drug abuse prevention from a young age, and step up interdiction and stop it from coming in a more smarter way. Thank you.
I have a follow-up, Peggy.
Yes.
Yeah, we seem to have two sides of this equation. And one is the users, I think, that you want to rehabilitate, and then we got the importation. You got really drug dealers importing and distributing the product. I guess I think if we could close our borders in some manner, and I don't know how to do that. I hear about increasing law enforcement, customs and quarantine, having more dogs or whatever. What do you think about that? What do you think Guam could do and you could assist with if you were Attorney General in curtailing the importation itself?
I'd like to start with Mr. Moylan.
Thank you, Mr. McDowell, for the question. My team has already started looking at what is the problem, situational problem as of 2023 and 2022. We believe that drugs are making it in through the customs and also possibly in the ocean. I think Guam's borders and this whole Chinese wave that we're getting in coming through the borders, basically the ocean, is also indicative of what may be happening out there. A lot of the boats that go out, they are not checked when they come back into Guam. And I referenced Bad Boys 2. You notice how they are, or it could have been the first version, but one of the Bad Boys showed the transfers were happening at sea, and then the boats were being brought in. If it's true that Customs is doing a good job with that which they're observing at the ports, containers, whatever, and the post office, then where is this increase? The price has dropped from $300 in the last 4 years to $100 a gram. And some say you can get it for $10 a gram. Well, that's an indicator of two things: more supply and or more users, which are driving that price down. So the first thing is find out where it's coming in, and don't rule out the fact that there's transfers going on outside the borders of Guam that we actually look at. I mentioned earlier getting the National Guard for the governor to, if she can't do it with the current law enforcement, then mobilize the people with the equipment that can actually monitor the oceans. If the federal government's not going to help with the Coast Guard and so forth, the local government with our assets is capable of doing that. We've got helicopters, I understand, with the Marshall Guard, with the National Guard right now, that should be employed. If anything, it should not be ruled out. Also, the dogs. We need to create a department on Guam, specifically within the law enforcement community, basically a kennel for these drug sniffing dogs. That seems to be the main and most effective method to detect drugs, because everybody's got their First Amendment and their Fourth Amendment rights, but at the same time, when a dog starts to detect it, and especially if the person's in public, that right is, there's a probable cause type of analysis that would begin from there. Working with the Guam Police Department, drug test every officer, because people that are on drugs can and have infiltrated our law enforcement community, whether it's Department of Corrections, which we saw a few years ago, or the Guam Police Department, Customs, whatever. We know the money is very lucrative, and the ability for law enforcement to stay clean has to be constantly checked. These are things that the AG can do outside of just taking them into court. I expect to work actively with every law enforcement agency. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. Mr. Peter Santos?
Yes, so with regard to using the military, you got to be careful of posse comitatus. That's illegal to use the military for law enforcement purposes. But, again, like I said earlier, working with our federal partners, one of the issues that I've seen over the years, and when I was in law enforcement, and even when I was up at the Attorney General's office, I was the lead drug prosecutor up there. There seems to be a distrust between the locals and the feds, and it's not always the case. There are times when there's more trust, there's times when there's less trust, but it results in the left hand not knowing what the right hand is doing. So I would foster a stronger relationship with the federal government for information sharing. And there is a lot of corruption in the government, both federal and local. And so that's why there's a lot of distrust. And that's why a lot of times the efforts could be more collaborative. And it's not, because of the distrust that exists. And so I would foster better working relationships with our federal partners and do a little bit more information sharing. And like I said, the ultimate goal is to take what limited resources we have and employ them more intelligently. Likewise, I have several friends in law enforcement that are certified dog trainers, right? We have that issue with getting dogs to Guam. However, we can probably turn them out locally. We have the breeds here. We have the certified trainers here. And so that's something we can look at. When Customs was having problems with getting the dogs in, I suggested an out-of-the-box solution to get the dogs in through our military partners. But the AG at the time didn't want to entertain that. So like I said, it's all about self-awareness, situational awareness, and situational understanding.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santos. I'd like to call Ms. Joanne Ige for our next question.
Thank you, Peggy. Question number 2, timely and effective criminal prosecutions. Media reporting of criminal prosecutions has not been favorable. It is perceived by some in our community that alleged criminals are released without consequence. The question is, How would you assure our citizens that those who commit crimes against the community are vigorously and effectively prosecuted in a timely manner?
Mr. Santos, would you mind answering that one first?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Joanne. It's been a long time since our time at GPD. But anyways, getting to the question, the problem that we have at prosecution right now is just a lack of qualified prosecutors. As a matter of fact, there's only 2 right now that's qualified to take serious cases to trial, and 1 is about to retire. And so the AG claims that there is concrete steps taken to recruit. However, no, there hasn't been any bites in that. What he's done is he's, I guess, gone onto all the listservs of all the law schools to try to recruit law school graduates. The problem with that is when they come here, they take 2 to 3 years to actually get up to speed, to be able to even do, mid-level trials, let alone serious cases. And so we've seen with this attorney general, he has chased away, a dozen at least of qualified prosecutors. So it takes someone that is going to develop the team, that's going to mentor, train, and guide these prosecutors to become competent. Right now, they are not, and they're losing cases left and right. We are getting cases dismissed at the charging level. We are getting cases dismissed at the eve of trial because there are not enough prosecutors to prosecute these cases. And so I've already gotten commitments from a lot of the prosecutors that if I were to be elected as the AG, that they would come back. And I even got commitments from non-prosecutors that are locals that said, I never thought about coming to prosecute, or going to prosecute, but if you do win, I'd give it a try. We had 3 members admitted recently. One's a local guy. He went to be a prosecutor in Washington because he doesn't want to prosecute on Guam.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Mr. Moylan?
Thank you. We did this before in 2003. I can do it again. Finding attorneys will not be a problem, and using the attorneys that we have there is the standard we apply in the private practice. I don't care if you're a civil lawyer, you will be doing prosecution if the need arises. The voters want a safe community. Whether the civil matters are pressing or not will have to be balanced against the more prioritized type of work, which is going to be prosecution. Doing more with less is what we dealt with back in 2003 era. We had a $5 million budget. They have $10 million more now, and probably about 50 to 100 people more than I had back then. You never heard a complaint about prosecution when I was the Attorney General. The idea to get the speedy trial rights for the government. I have legislation that I'm considering drafting for the legislature, if elected, that would give the people a speedy trial right. The ability to take a trial, take a defendant into trial within arguably 45 days if incarcerated, 60 days if free, should be a right that the people of Guam have, not just the defendants. So I would promote that type of legislative change, but regardless, being able to be ready for trial, to do good legal briefs, I think is lacking in this current AG. They're not submitting the proper arguments to the judges. I don't want to be so quick to blame the judges because they need the arguments presented to them because they are the neutral adjudicators of the law and the application of punishment. But once the arguments are made, what needs to be done is more exposure to the public. I expect to be making certain reports in a very one-page type format that will be released to the media so that the public can see whether or not the judges are being too lenient on people that they believe should be put in jail for a longer period or put in jail at all. I think that's been a big problem in our medias. I have a no excuses approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. Are there any follow-up questions? If none, we will proceed to the next question, and that would be from Ms. Claire Delgado.
Thank you, Peggy. This question is in reference to timely preparation and in issuance of legal opinions. Government agencies often encounter seeming inconsistencies and conflicts in laws affecting mandated responsibilities and routinely ask for legal opinions from the AG. Some requests are urgent and agency actions hang in the balance. How will you address urgent agency requests for legal opinions?
Thanks for the question, Mr. Moylan. Would you mind answering that first?
Yes, this was an issue back when I was the Attorney General, and it's always an issue for every Attorney General. And this is the civil arm that I speak of. We talk about the criminal. In private practice, where civil and criminal doesn't matter. You represent the defendants or you provide the civil practice, legal practice is required. When I was the Attorney General, the department heads, the cabinet members, including the governor, had a direct access to me as the Attorney General. That's going to be reinstated if I get in again. The division, the department and agency heads, or even their staff can call me directly. And I actually have a secretary that would be handling calls and who it's from. Whenever there's a priority of a legal opinion needed, that was never a problem when I served. A lot of it's about the procurement, by the way, the processing of contracts so that procurements can get out in a timely fashion. In my written response, you can go over the details on how I handled it before. This is important. Obviously, the legislature has a statute that says that the Attorney General must provide a legal opinion. But this is part of the why we call our AG an Attorney General and not a district attorney. He has responsibility to ensure that government officials receive the legal guidance as they are needed and as requested. Oftentimes, they can't make decisions without a legal opinion, and obviously a legal opinion from the Attorney General should hold greater weight when considering the issues, because the Attorney General will be the one either to review government department agency action or potentially bring an action against the government official or the agency if they violated the law, i.e. official misconduct or some form of mishandling of funds. So I welcome the idea that the government officials would be asking the Attorney General for guidance. And my history shows that there was not a problem with the Attorney General under my administration on getting out the legal opinions and guidance as needed. Just a note there, the notary services are under the Attorney General. And for your purposes, we never had a problem with notaries. We processed them and had them tested and licensed as required. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. Mr. Santos?
Yes, and one of the things that I've been criticized about is my big mouth and speaking the truth, even if it hurts people's feelings. I answered in my questionnaire that there should be no excuse for delayed opinions. The civil division actually is the division that has the highest paid attorneys. What I observed when I was working up there, was folks walking in at 10 o'clock in the morning and leaving at 3, so they come and go when they please. So conceptually, what I can do to address this is pretty simple. It's just putting in systems and processes in place. The hard part is actually monitoring it and enforcing it and holding, the staff and the attorneys accountable. And so, when you have a problem with your computer, right, and you go to your IT department, what do? They issue you a trouble ticket, right? And so a very similar system like that, when someone poses a question or requests for an answer, you should get a ticket number, so it can be tracked. When was it first filed? Right now what I'm seeing is, we emailed this attorney, but then she went on leave, and then we emailed that attorney, or the other attorney doesn't see the email or can't see the email, or it's not in the file. And so it should be a centralized system. So whatever communications go in and out should be all compiled together, just like a trouble ticket system for IT problems. The same thing should happen with legal services. And like I said, I was chief of administrative law, for a Army unit that was 50,000 strong. And so we had systems like this because we had a lot of customers. And so that things don't get lost. And also we have time standards. And so that's something else that we would implement if I were the AG. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santos. Are there any follow-up questions to this?
I thought I saw Randy raise his hand. Randy, did you have a follow-up question? Well, I do. This is
Okay.
John Dwayne. I can ask it. This actually highlights, this part of the questioning highlights a problem that has existed at the Attorney General's office. I was in the government of Guam back in the 70s. I was the chief engineer of public works. We asked for legal opinions, and almost you could die on the vine waiting for an answer. Most recently, there's been a conflict between the parental subdivision law and the regulations that Guam EPA has for developments, residential developments in northern Guam over the aquifer that are not sewered. The answer we get when we bring this up, because we're looking at legislation to handle this, was that the Attorney General was asked 3 years ago to render an opinion between the conflict in laws and the conflicts in regulations. And to date, there has been no answer. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating for the legislators. They don't know how to write the law. And the last meeting we had, believe it or not, 4 attorneys. And to each attorney, the response we got was, it's complicated. That's a way to say, we don't know what to do, or we don't want to do anything. How would you approach this?
Thank you for the question. In essence of time, we're going to have up to 1 minute to answer this question, so we can go through the remaining questions as well as the questions from our audience. Mr. Santos, would you mind answering that first, please?
Yes, first and foremost, I am familiar with the issue, and it's not as complicated as they want to make it sound. It's an issue of equity, right? And I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that. Why is it just because someone is under one circumstance, but someone else is under a different circumstance, there's different treatment? So it's about equity. And, the fact that it took 3 years, that's, again, something that would be addressed by the proposed changes that I would have, right? We would have that ticket system. We would have, that tracking system, and we would have time standards. My time standards would be, if someone asks a question, we got to give them a response within 24 hours, not a full response, but like, hey, we got the question, and ask for any clarification if there's not enough clarification, instead of letting it sit for 7 months, 8 months, and then coming back, say, wait, I didn't really understand your question, right? So you have to have some correspondence within 24 hours. And then within 10 business days, you should have, a more comprehensive response. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Santos. Mr. Moylan?
Mr. Duenas, the subdivision law is a benefit to the families on Guam. That was intended in order to provide the setback exemptions from the normal zoning requirements. So I suspect there's going to be some issues with maybe some new regulations passed by maybe the federal EPA, if not the local. I served as a legislative counsel for 6 years, 24th, 25th, 26th Guam legislatures. I can draft the legislation personally, quite frankly, if they needed the law to be changed, but assessing what was wrong with it and what type of correction can be made either administratively on counseling to the department or agency, or having the legislature make a law change if the AG was to find that there was a problem. I don't believe in bureaucracy. I said it before, a direct call to my office, to me personally, would be available to, quite frankly, every government official. Even as of this time, my numbers are published. I've always believed that getting right to the problem is important. I do not believe in bureaucracy. And I believe that what was just said is bureaucratic. The legal opinions will be acted on, and the government agency will be apprised of any situation on a timely basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. And the next question will come from our president, Ms. Liz Duenas.
Okay, thanks, Peggy. Recruitment and retention of qualified prosecutors. That seems to be an issue that we're having currently. It has been widely publicized that numerous experienced attorneys have left the office of the Attorney General, resulting in a depleted cadre of prosecutors who seem to be overwhelmed by the current caseload. What will you do to recruit and retrain qualified attorneys in the numbers required to handle current as well as the projected future criminal prosecution caseload?
Thank you for the question. Mr. Douglas Moylan.
The current number that Liz Anderson handed over to this Attorney General is 21 prosecutors. Now, 21 prosecutors is just a number. As I said earlier, the more experience you have as an attorney, normally the better attorney you are. You have more life experience, you have more experience for the judges, understand what it's going to take in order to win the case. We did it before, again, we'll do it again. I've got a group of lawyers that I've already been talking with. I'm going to bring a group back in. We're going to recruit off island. We can find them. We're talking about, a huge number that are in the States. Right now, there's legislation or a rule change, quite frankly, before the Guam Board of Law Examiners, which is the Supreme Court of Guam, in order to allow off-island lawyers to be permitted to be practicing just as a government attorney during a certain period of time. They're trying to get it up to 8 years. Quite frankly, I would ask that that be removed altogether as long as they serve the people of Guam through the Attorney General's office. The considerations about, worrying about saturating the private bar with lawyers is usually not going to be a problem.
Thank you very much. Mr. Santos.
Yes, people don't flee jobs, they flee bosses. When I came to be a prosecutor, I took a 40% pay cut and I forwent a $60,000 retention bonus in the military because I wanted to be a prosecutor. And I stayed on as long as I possibly could, but it got so untenable that I had to leave, right? I could have left a lot earlier than I did leave. So it wasn't about money. It's never about money. It's about having a good working environment where you're going to learn, you're going to grow, you're going to develop, and you're going to be treated with dignity and respect. And this is the message that I will send to all potential candidates, that if you come work for, Guam Attorney General Prosecution Division under Peter Santos, that's the environment that you're going to get. And I went personally on my own dime to recruit while I was still a prosecutor because I was out there for military training. The face-to-face recruitment is what works the best. I brought 6 people back to Guam over a span of 2 years. All of them are gone because what I promised them was destroyed by leaving Camacho. So they came on because I promised them a good team. I promised them, learning possibilities, potential for development and to do serious cases. However, all that got wrecked when Elizabeth Barrett Anderson left and Leavin Camacho came in. So for me, it's that face-to-face. I would incentivize my prosecutors to go out and do that face-to-face recruiting. And that's what is effective. And that's what brings people back, not some, 2 or 3 paragraph advertisement in a law school listserv in a sea of hundreds of other advertisements.
Thank you very much. Are there any follow-up question to this? Yes, we have one for Ms. Fabian Respicio.
Thank you, Peggy. My follow-up question is, we all know that most especially in the healthcare industry, the recruitment and retention of qualified doctors and nurses and specialists weighs heavily on salaries. What is your opinion, or what would you say in your recruitment and retention experience for attorneys, for public attorneys? How important is a salary factor? And can Guam meet those salaries?
All right, the follow-up question will be answered for up to 1 minute. We'll start with Mr. Santos.
Yes, prosecutors are a special type of attorney. Like I said, I took a 40% pay cut and forwent a $60,000 retention bonus in the military so that I can come be a prosecutor. It's never been about the money. But the good news is there is a 15% pay increase or specialty pay that's been approved recently by the legislature. Whether that's going to help, it might make a difference. But again, it's not about the money. It's never been about the money for prosecutors. You can't, attorneys are not fungible. You cannot just take a child support attorney and make them prosecute. I'm seeing that now. We have civil child support and other people sitting in for prosecution, and they're crashing and burning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santos. Mr. Moylan.
I'm not a fan of big budgets. I'm a fan of a manager, which is the Attorney General, using what you have in order to come in either at budget or under budget. In my last 4 years as the Attorney General reflected that. We never had overspending in that office. We worked with what we had. I totally disagree with the other statement that was made that attorneys can't be transferred from one division to the next division. That's how we're trained as lawyers. You do criminal, you do civil. That's how I operated my Attorney General's office. You take the people for where they're needed and you move them. That is what a lawyer is all about. And I see no problem in handling prosecution matters by pulling civil lawyers. And you know, you're not doing it all day. If you want to handle the magistrates in the morning, take care of the legal opinion in the afternoon, that's what we do in private practice. That's the standard for lawyers out there. And that will be the standard for the Attorney General's office. If there's a need for a price adjustment, I'm worried that the government may be going into a financial hole pretty soon as the federal money runs out. So I'm not going to be counting on increasing salaries. We'll work with what we have. I think it's a lot more than I had 16 years ago. And quite frankly, I'm very happy to work with that budget that they have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. And our next question will come from Ms. Fabian Respicio.
Thank you, Peggy. The next question is on panhandlers. It is common for panhandlers to stand at medians or busy highway intersections asking for donations. It is our understanding that this practice is not legal. What is your position regarding this panhandling practice? Please explain.
Mr. Moylan.
You know, first of all, I think that question is a good question, but it is, you know, I have a heart. You know, I see the signs that they're holding. I recognize that, you know, people are needy out there. But as the Attorney General, those considerations have to go to the idea that you must enforce the law. It is illegal for private people to be using government property for pecuniary gain, even if it's for donations and those sorts of things. If I was the Attorney General, and I've already, quite frankly, before your question, had that in my mind because I, as all of you, see that. It is a danger to the pedestrians that are walking. It is a danger to the drivers who may have to avoid those people that are running in the middle of the road. You see kids out there, and I think GPD's got to be under the tutelage of the Attorney General's office, and a statement be made publicly that that will not be allowed on Guam anymore. At the same time, people that need help should be taken to the proper government agency under the control of the governor of Guam. And I believe our governor is very active right now on trying to use as much money to help the underprivileged as possible. Well, let's do that and put these people together. I hope to work with the chief of police to ensure that the police officers properly follow the pedestrian laws and the government rules as it pertains to use of government property. And those people that need help, if there's mental illness indicated, take them to Guam Behavioral Health, which kind of goes off to the governor should be making a bigger facility. I think we have more people that are suffering from mental health diseases right now, let alone meth addiction related type diseases that require a facility to house them. We really need to construct something. Those other people that are saying that they need money for medical reasons or whatever, I think that they should be taken over to public health, and public health should work with the AG's office or civil division in order to see what we can actually do for them. You know, including those people that say that they have severe medical illnesses. Well, we have federal programs for that. They shouldn't be forced to the roads. This is the United States and not a third world nation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moylan. Mr. Peter Santos.
Yes, thank you. It is illegal, but of course, we as an island have compassion. The other thing is that to enforce it would be nearly impossible because it's prevalent everywhere. It's ubiquitous, right? So what I understand from even my time at GPD is that they only address the aggressive panhandlers, because not all panhandlers are equal, right? You have the guy sitting at Chief Kapua Link that is sitting on his wheelchair and holds out a sign, and you know, he's pretty passive. Then you have these others that get into the street when the light is red, and they go straight up to you and face you, you know, stare in your face like 3 inches from your face. And so what the police officers try to do is when they see the aggressive ones, they try to curtail that. But again, it's like whack-a-mole. when they see a police car, they become non-aggressive, right? And then when the police car is not there, they become aggressive again. So it's one of those things that is very difficult to police. It's very difficult to enforce. And because we're a very compassionate island, people tolerate that. But it is illegal. In other places, they make people get a license to panhandle. I don't know if that's feasible here. You know, we can't even get people to register their cars, right? And so it's to get these panhandlers to get a license, right, or a permit to panhandle. I don't think that's feasible. What's going to happen, or what's going to need to happen, is that we just need to have a community that has more resources and a better economy, and that might be what will curtail the panhandle. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any follow-up question to this? Seeing none, I have a question from a member. How will your office ensure that the police officers are doing their job efficiently and are fair in making citations to the people who are or were incorrectly charged of the citations? Mr. Moylan?
You know, the question on a citation is I'm presuming it's the traffic ticket. When you say the word citation, if the police issue some sort of a violation, normally the AG's office doesn't get involved in that unless there's a complaint of some form of corruption going on. You know, especially at the speed traps, if people are being let go that should be cited and ticketed. I think that's why GPD has its chief of police and its internal affairs department to ensure that at least the GPD properly issues and its citations and so forth, and the police reports actually make it to the Attorney General's office. That would be a problem if we heard that police reports were not coming to the Attorney General's office. Oftentimes the victims would alert us, and I would welcome anyone having any problems to directly go to me as the Attorney General, as they did before, to alert the AG's office if they believe that the system has a corruption that's going on. And I obviously, as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer, would oversee any problems going on within the officers, men and women within the force.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moylan. Mr. Santos?
Yes, back in the 80s, there was a big ticket fixing scandal. However, GPD did take measures to ensure that that doesn't happen. What is the problem, I think, from hearing the question, is equal enforcement. Unfortunately, law enforcement officers, whether it's police officers or other types of law enforcement officers out there that have the ability to issue citations, they have discretion on when to issue a citation or when to give a verbal warning. Now, if there is any issues that are concerned, they can definitely call the AG's office, and the Attorney General should be talking to the Chief of Police and telling the Chief of Police some of the concerns or all of the concerns that are brought to the AGs, because sometimes members of the public don't want to go to the police because they don't trust the police. But as far as any ticket fixing, there are preventative measures, or safeguards rather, within the system that prevent anyone from canceling tickets anymore. That cannot be done. The only one that can dismiss a ticket is a judge. Now, with respect to, time's up, okay.
Thank you very much. Now, as we reach our end time, we'd like to ask both candidates to convey their closing remarks, and we'll start with Mr. Peter Santos.
Peggy, before they do, can I ask a last question, please?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering whether either one of you are familiar. This is on the drug issue, whether you're familiar. I did a presentation last year at the penitentiary, and it appeared, this was under INAFA-MALIC, about conflict resolution and suicide prevention. And the group that we did a presentation to appeared to be a separate group of probably drug offenders that were incarcerated at the penitentiary. So in terms of dealing with individuals that were incarcerated, dealing with drug abuse, there's either intervention where they go to one of the facilities. And from what I gathered just most recently, there are limitations. They cannot take them. And the ones that are incarcerated, I'm just wondering, are you familiar with the program that they have in the penitentiary? Has that been effective? So I think they separate the group, they provide education to rehabilitate them to enter the community. Is that program effective?
Mr. Moylan?
I do not believe it is effective because we don't have enough focus. Once you incarcerate them, and that is my tough on crime approach, you need to get them the help that they need in there in that detox facility, which is our prison. First of all, you got to make sure that there's no drugs getting in there. Like the current AG just let that lady go that was trying to get the drugs in there. That's the tip of the iceberg that's going on in there. We heard a few years ago, all the drugs that got in there. The RSAT program has to be increased so that once they're arrested, they immediately have the ability to get treatment. Build the meth addiction treatment next to the facility. Don't let it be to mooning that they have to be transported. You create a lot of logistical problems. Build it. There's a lot of property around the DOC facility. If not, build it inside it. Get the physicians, the social workers, whoever you need to treat their addiction in there. Get a trades program working so you get those guys certified in some license so that when they get out, they have the dignity and ability to get out of the drug world. This abyss that these guys are facing is only going to be seen if you lock them up. And right now, the courts, the governor, and the attorney general's office are dyslexic because they're not providing the help that these people need. First of all, the direction is wrong. You can't treat them in our community because you're creating crime victims. Put them in the DOC, give them the ability to do their ADC treatment and whatever they need to get better in the facility. They chose to take drugs. They're going to have to choose to fix their lives. So in response to the question, you need to actually create the policies within DOC that the warden is compelled to follow. There's too much of this, I'm not sure if we provide it or, is it going to be used against them at trial if they get that before judgment? Ms. Duenas, I believe that your question, those people you're talking to were probably post-judgment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moylan. Mr. Santos?
Yes, the Residential Substance Abuse Treatment, or RSAT, is currently housed at DOC. They have a separate segregated building that is used for that program. Likewise, they got additional funding. They used to have one cycle a year. Now they've got 2, possibly 3 cycles a year. The issue also is whether or not a candidate is eligible. So they have to be screened and assessed whether or not they're going to be allowed into the program. So it's not an automatic thing, right? So they have to be good candidates. So once they're in there, they give them the training and the tools to try to stay sober. Drug addiction is a lifetime affliction. People never stop being a drug addict, but they can be armed and educated with the tools and the resources, awareness of resources that they can use and depend upon if they feel like relapsing. But there's no guarantee, but there is a lot of success in the program.
Thank you very much. And that would be our final question. Now we will move on to our closing remarks for our candidates. Please utilize the time up to 3 minutes to convey your message and your closing remarks. Mr. Peter Santos, we'll start with you.
Yes, Hafa Day, ladies and gentlemen, again, my name is Pete Santos. I'm running as a write-in candidate for Attorney General of Guam. I was born in Agate to a teenage mother of 15 years old. I was raised by my grandparents. We were born in a tin shack with no indoor plumbing, grew up on public assistance. I spent 1 year, my 6th grade summer, living in a station wagon. And so I come from the grassroots. I am of this land and I understand. I grew up with drugs and alcohol around me. I was abused and neglected myself as a child. So I understand the struggles that our people are facing. I have no family big business interests, right? I don't even own a home at this point. I'm looking, but I don't even own a home. So anyways, I have lived my entire career, my entire adult career in service of the public. 8 years as a GPD officer, you know, and then I went into active duty military. And then I got out and I came back and I became a prosecutor. I became a defense attorney later. While I was in the military, I was Army JAG. I was a prosecutor, a defense attorney in the military. I was chief of administrative law. I was a magistrate. So my whole life has been around the criminal justice system. My undergraduate degree at UOG is in criminal justice. And so I have 30 years of serving the public, whether it's the federal government or the local government. And I have lived a life of trials and tribulations. And so I understand what the common man, you know, goes through. I understand the problems of abuse. I understand the problems of drug abuse. I have many family members that are afflicted with it. You know, thank God that I never myself ever even wanted to smoke a cigarette, right? So that's just luck of the draw. But I bring to the table all my years of experience, all my life experience, and a caring and compassionate style of leadership. What is happening right now, the biggest elephant in the room, of course, is prosecution. There are other areas of the attorney generals that needs to be improved. I'm a firm believer of leaving something better than you found it. And I also am a firm believer that everything can stand to be improved. Now, the biggest problem at the Attorney General's office is prosecution. It's like having a team that has had several losing seasons. You need a new general manager and a new head coach to go in there and to recruit and develop that team. It's not going to happen overnight. I have the advantage that I have people that are committed to start right away if I am ever elected. And so I think electing me, we can turn things around a lot quicker. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santos. Mr. Douglas Moylan.
Again, thank you for this opportunity to address yourselves as well as the public community. I am number one on the ballot. I am respectfully asking for your vote, and I base that upon my belief that I have the most to offer our community. The Attorney General has prosecutorial and civil responsibilities, and with the experience, and it's not 30 years of me going to school or being in some non-attorney related field. I have been an attorney for 30 years. I have the experience, and I believe, hopefully, I have the wisdom to be making the correct decisions. I also guarantee each one of you today that if I'm elected, as well as I've made available to the public and to the media, you will have direct access to the Attorney General to at least listen to what issue might be facing you as realtors. The Attorney General has a prosecution and a civil responsibility arm. The public clearly is asking the next Attorney General to fight crime, to handle crime in a different way. And I offer a service that is unlike and unique to the other candidates that are running for this position. We all want the Attorney General to succeed. We all need the Attorney General to succeed. And each voter should be looking at the curriculum vitae of each candidate before them, as well as their track record in having to have effectively fought crime. The phrase toughest AG on crime was developed by me because I believe that I saw that problem in our community. Crime destroys, like meth does, the individual. Crime destroys our ability to function, to profit, to enjoy the liberties guaranteed us by the Organic Act and the US Constitution. I believe that the experiences that I've gone through in life and my actual track record would help the voters in order to fight that criminal element in our community, whether it be people that are not US citizens that no longer deserve to be among us, or whether that be our own people that need the helping hand. But as I said before, the helping hand comes from different people that are employed by this government. The Attorney General is the chief legal officer from a civil perspective, but is also the chief law enforcement officer from the criminal prosecution perspective. If elected, I will assemble the team in order to perform all duties of the Attorney General and most especially the prosecution responsibilities. Again, I humbly request your vote and your support. I will do what I promise, and you can hold me to that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Candidates Peter Santos and Douglas Moylan. I will defer now to Mr. John Duenas for his last closing remarks, as well as Mr. Monty McDowell, thereafter our president, Elizabeth Duenas.
Thank you very much, candidates. I really learned a lot today listening to you and your approach to the Office of the Attorney General. I congratulate you for your courage in running, and good luck to you. And hope that you can make it. And this is, I think the people of Guam will benefit, whoever we elect, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's like to say that I'm extremely impressed. Both highly intelligent and charismatic individuals. Well, I think either one of you could do a fabulous job in that position. It's going to be a hard decision on the Guam Association of Realtors, but thank you very much for stepping up to the plate. You're just great individuals. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Liz?
Yes, Sidus Masi, and again, thank you for appearing. It is unfortunate that Levin was not able to join this group. He happens, for the listening audience, he happens to be in Washington, D.C. at this time. However, we did invite him to join our Zoom meeting. Reasons for his inability to attend is unfortunate, because we would have wanted to hear his feedback as well. Again, our over 600 members, thank you for attending, and wishing both of you good luck, and we'll see you after the general election. Sidus Masi.
Sidus Masi.
Thank you very much. Folks, the audience as well that are with us, please stand by as we transition momentarily to our next segment with our congressional delegates. Hapaday and good morning once again for our second segment of our Day 3 live virtual town hall. Today with us are our congressional delegates. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, audience, for sticking around. I'd like to give the virtual floor to our president, Ms. Liz Duenas. I would like to kindly ask Ms. Duenas to unmute.
Okay, there you go. Welcome, Jim and Judy, to our legislative format. Our over 600 members, the intent of this workshop, town hall meeting, is to listen to your point of views regarding some issues that we have on island. And the questionnaire, of course, is coming from our National Association of Realtors. And we want to hear your points of view and where you stand on the different issues. And it would assist our membership in deciding who to vote for in the general election. So thank you for joining us and responding to the questionnaire.
Okay, I'm Monty McDowell. I'm Chairman of the Legislative Committee. Got a few ground rules. First of all, I'd like to welcome you, and we're just absolutely honored to have both of you striving for the position of our delegate representing Guam. Extremely important position. You know, we've read your responses to our question, highly professional and well thought out. The rules of engagement here is you will be asked to stay on muted mode if not speaking. Your name will be called upon by the host to be able to proceed with your remarks or in answering the question. Please unmute yourself at that time. You will each be provided strictly 3 minutes for your welcome remarks to include the following: your full name, brief background, why you are running for the position. You will each be provided no more than 2 minutes to answer each question addressed to you. All answers must be germane to the question being asked. When there's 15 seconds left in your time period, if you haven't concluded already, Peggy's background will turn yellow as you see it now. And when it turns red, that means your time is up. To ensure that we are able to keep up with the time and allow others opportunity to answer, we will mute any candidate unable to stay within the time frame. And at the end, we'll give you another 2 minutes to conclude and state your full name and why you believe that you are deserving of our vote. With that, thank you very much. And thanks again for sharing some time with us and answering our question.
I will defer.
So thank you very much, candidates. Congratulations on your appearance today. The membership wants to hear what you have to say. So without further ado, we can proceed with the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will start with Mr. John Duenas for the first question.
So the first question is, please give 3 reasons why you're running.
Would like to start with Miss Judy Won-Pat.
Did we do the introduction, Peggy?
Oh, let's go ahead and allow them to do that. Prior to, we will repeat the question for you. Well, you have up to 3 minutes to convey your message in your opening remarks. Thank you very much. We'll start with Miss Judy Won-Pat.
Buenas and half a day. Thank you very much for the invitation to be here with you today. I'm sorry for my voice. I went canvassing, got caught in the rain, and I lost my voice. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Judy Won-Pat, and I spent 25 years in the Guam Public Schools, serving as a teacher, counselor, and school administrator. I was later elected to the Guam legislature for 9 terms, 5 of which as the first female speaker. Over the past few years, I ventured into the role of a small business owner and grandmother. From being in the classrooms to learning the politics of politics, as a single mother to 3 children after the passing of my husband, to navigating the struggles of a small business during a pandemic, my life experience is connected to Guam. I'm running for Congress because decisions in Washington have a large impact on our lives. And I want to make sure that federal laws, policies, and programs are good for Guam. Guam's interests seldom drive the interests that are made in Washington. Our community understands that regional security is crucial, and this is a very dangerous time for Guam. A strong Guam voice in the defense discussion is critical to make sure that our community benefits to the maximum extent on all fronts. Showing the evidence that Guam deserves more is not enough. Good ideas without follow-through won't cut it. Our delegate must put in the work, reach across the aisle, collaborate, and lead with a united voice. I will work to advance the security of our families, the security of our economy, and the security of our environment in every national security discussion. I will show up for Guam, driven by my love for our people, my devotion to our beautiful island, and my deep respect for our way of life. This is my We Are Guam First agenda. Undang Kuna si Zeus Masi for this invitation.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'll go next to Mr. Jim Moylan.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you for this opportunity to come before the Guam Association of Realtors. I'm glad we're doing this for the public to hear the voices of the candidates, all candidates from gubernatorial, senatorial, and as well as the delegate position too. So good morning to everyone, and also good morning to Ms. Judy Won-Pat there. So I'm happy to have this opportunity to move forward, I believe, in the position of elected official, and I'm excited about doing the job for the people of Guam. And I think my experience has brought me to this position to allow me to run And as you can see, during our legislature sessions here, I believe I worked hard for the people of Guam. But before going into that, just a little bit about myself here. I'm born and raised in Guam. My father was John Moylan, my mother, Maria Camacho Moylan. So I'm kind of a half and half right here as well. But I graduated high school in Guam, and I graduated at the University of Guam, and joined the ROTC program as well, where I became a commissioned officer for some time and served time in the Army. And after fulfilling that mission for our nation, I then came and worked for the government of Guam as a parole officer for 7 years at DOC. And I had an experience of understanding how our island is faced with different elements of crime and public safety as well. From there, I went into the private sector, and that's where I was able to meet a lot of you with the insurance industry and providing property and casualty insurance, life insurance, health insurance too. So I feel on the business side too. And then finally, it came time for me to take the move forward and get into politics. So, and I was elected in the 35th and also into the 36th Guam legislature. I championed many bills in regards to the economy. And that's our primary focus for my team, and also for the public safety, right? We want our residents to feel safe, especially in our homes that we work so hard to build and to pay our mortgages as well. So public safety is a great concern, and I focus on many of our measures on that too. In addition, for the realtors and a lot of small businesses, we looked at reducing a lot of taxes related to businesses, and I've been a champion on that, especially reducing the gross receipts tax, right, and the BBT tax. So there's many things I put on the table that I think is very helpful for the real estate industry, because that's the most important thing. I believe it's building our homes for the people of Guam, and is providing a safe neighborhood and providing good education. And I'm looking forward to doing a lot more. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and pardon me for my oversight with the introduction. Now I'll go ahead and proceed to defer to Mr. John Duenas for the first question once more.
So I'll ask it again. Please give 3 reasons why you are running.
Thank you very much for the question. We have up to 2 minutes to answer that. I'd like to ask Ms. Judy Won-Pat.
Thank you. As stated in my opening, and I will go ahead and repeat it as well, that, you know, I'm running for Congress because many of the decisions are made in Congress, and it definitely has an impact on our lives in all aspects of our lives. And I want to make sure that federal laws, policies, and programs, and they really are good for Guam. We must be able to catch, you know, whatever legislation is coming out, to make sure that, one, that the territories are included even in the definition of a state. I feel that because of the geopolitical tension that's going on right now, that is really critical that there be a voice in the defense discussion also at the same time to benefit Guam, not just inside the fence, but outside the fence. I want to advocate and advance the security of our families, the security of our economy, and the security, of course, of our environment in every national security discussion. So the goal is to leverage our strategic importance and obtain federal funding for all of these different aspects that impacts on our lives here in Guam. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Moylan?
Thank you. Well, there are 3 issues really important to me and that I've been striving for during my 35th and the 36th Guam legislature. And these issues I will continue to bring forward to DC at the congressional level. But what are these 3 issues? First, we understand that we have a pandemic, still in the pandemic emergency, right? But I think really what the pandemic emergency is no longer about the disease, COVID-19. We are in an economic pandemic emergency. We need the support and continued support of the federal government. And that's the voice I can bring to DC, representing you, the Real Estate Association, GARB, representing the homeowners as well. the prices of food, the prices of fuel is outrageous, right? And we're so limited on what we can reduce the prices on. During my tenure in Senate, I was able to bring down and voted for the reduction in the liquid fuel cost. We were champions of measures for the test bill, which is weights and measurements of these containers that come on in. We looked at reducing the taxes or increasing the DeSantis amendment to reduce the taxes on that for small businesses. We did license reduction in cost of licenses for LLC from $1,000 to $250. All these things all add up to help the real estate industry, to help homeowners, first-time homeowners get into their homes. We need the prices of food and the cost of goods to be reduced. We have some plans regarding the shipping measures, and there's things we're working in right now with other congressional candidates in DC as we speak. So that's one. In addition to that is moving families into homes, of course, right? And finally, I'm a veteran, right? I'm looking at helping veterans also get into their homes, looking at supporting the veterans for their medical things. We had to take care of these things for the veterans as well. So a few of the things I'm looking forward to. Thank you very much.
The next question will be asked by Mr. Monty McDowell. Thank you for those answers.
Thank you, Peggy. You're very prominent people in our community who have lots of accomplishments. So we're very curious if you could list some major endorsements you received for this race.
I'd like to ask Mr. Moylan to answer the question.
There, unmute first, right? There you go. Peggy, I see bread. Does that mean my time is up?
Yes, thank you for that. No, it's not. That
Okay. Now I see the roses that you are. Thank you. Thank you. Endorsements. We've made a few trips to DC. We spoke to congressional folks. We spoke on the Republican side. We see the Republican side coming in as the next wave, the red wave coming into Congress. So what we did is we got endorsements. Let me give you a few of them. Congressman Glenn Thompson from Pennsylvania, he's known as GT, endorsed as a candidate here. Barry Moore from Alabama, we were just talking to him as well. Our Congresswoman from Samoa, Amata, is very favorable and us moving forward. The Republican and locally, the Republican governors, Governor Joe Adda, Governor Felix Camacho, Governor Eddie Calvo, and Congressman Chris Stewart from Utah also gave us his endorsement. Recently spoke with Congressman Rob Whitman from Virginia in support, and Congressman Neil Dunn from Florida. All these folks hold key positions as Republican congressional folks in committees that we see are important for the congressman from Guam to get in and to be part of. So we're building these relationships at the start. So after November 8th and upon January, when we move on into that seat, we're ready. And so by building that relationship, we felt that it's important to do this as well. So, and of course, I'm hoping for all your endorsements too, you know. So the idea is that we build those relationships with DC. We're ready to go from day one, and we're continuing to have those relationships too as we come closer and closer to the election. So this is the importance of understanding, just like realtors, right? And just like folks in business as well, the product that we're selling has to come through our voices to be heard and shared with those that have the power to have a great impact on us here on Guam. And how do we sell that? We had to sell ourselves, obviously, right? Just like the realtors sell their products. So that's what I'm looking forward to doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Miss Judy Won-Pat.
Thank you. Most recently, about 3 weeks ago, I went to Washington, D.C. at the call of the Democratic Party caucus chairman, Mr. Jeffries from New York, and also at a call from Senator Aguilar from California. They had actually arranged all of the meetings for me to meet with the Democratic Party leadership and was able to get endorsements from basically all of them, from Senator Liu, from the chairman of Natural Resources and the chairman Armed Services Committee, also from our neighbor from Kalili, from our own previous delegate, Congresswoman Madeline Bordallo and Congressman Robert Underwood. And those are, a few that I could pull from the top of my head. I know that Rivaldo basically said that it is important that we have a strong voice in his committee in natural resources, primarily because he's looking at equity for all of the territories and welcomes, basically said that, I make it that he would definitely push for me to be in his committee. And when I spoke to Congressman Smith and spoke to him as well about what's going on in the military buildup, one of the things he did say that in January, that what he would like to do is to set up a CODEL to come to Guam. And the request I basically made was, in that request is that when you come to Guam, please just to look at our community is faring as a result of this and how we're impacted, so that then more resources will be made available. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the next question will come from Mr. Carl Peterson.
Thank you very much, and welcome to this Zoom event. Could you tell us what your relationship with the Guam Realtors Association has been in the past? Has it been positive? Has it been negative? Do you support or you not support the activities of the association?
Thank you for the question. I'd like to ask Ms. Judy Won-Pat to answer that first.
Well, I'm definitely a homeowner, and I have several houses are basically for rent, and that's basically the extent in terms of being involved in any of the activities with the realtors. I know I've participated in the past as a former member of the legislature in all forums or questions, interviews by members. I've never, at least unless some of you have come up, silently have not told me that there was any conflict or disagreement with me. I know that several of the things that I've been working on was working closely with the government in terms of trying to declare our island as a rural community so that we would be able to have access to more monies from housing. Also legislation that I did here to help first-time homeowners, because for many years they didn't have any seed money to be able to purchase their first home and get the seed money to pay for either closing costs or for needed furniture, and that now has a dedicated funding source since that time. But other than that, whatever legislation in terms that were proffered by members of the legislature that I've supported, I honestly don't recall ever voting against any of those any bills that may be detrimental to real estate issues here in Guam.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jim Moylan.
Thank you. And thank you, Carl, for your question. I'm a strong supporter of the Guam Association of Realtors. I'm very proud of this organization coming together and representing the people of Guam, and your efforts to push the legislature to make legislation the right way to help build homes instead of overtaxing our people and make the process better. We do need a lot of improvements, especially in permitting side as well, but your voices are heard. I believe I reflected that in some of our measures. I've had the opportunity as in my first term in 2018, and then my second term in 2020 to gain the approval of the Guam Association of Realtors and your PAC with your supporting me for the election. So I thank you for that. And of course, I'm asking that once again for the delegate position too. There are measures I've been fighting for to support the realtors, and especially that ridiculous $1 million plus, right? That legislation should be reversed. I attempted to do that, but of course, until certain folks in the legislature are changed, we need that to be adjusted back down to something real. Don't overtax. Don't overtax, because what's going to happen is then that tax is going to get passed down back to the homeowner, right? And there's nothing we can do about that, and that's very unfortunate. We should be making the cost of having a home on Guam as most affordable as possible. And the Guam Association of Realtors, I think I'm just getting a horn if you didn't hear that. There's somebody speaking for me and they like what I'm saying. The Guam Association of Realtors are doing what they can to speak to the legislatures. And my ear is open, and my ear will continue to be open in support of what we need to do for the island to make the cost of goods better. As your delegate, I will look at the other measures there to bring in the cost, reducing the cost of these goods so we can build homes at a more affordable price. Looking for measures that will help start up more homes, right? There's a shortage of homes, right? And that's what we need to address as part of the problem. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. The next question will be asked by Ms. Fabian Respicio.
Thank you, Peggy. What is your campaign's plan, or what is your strategy to win your election?
Mr. Moylan, would you like to answer that one first?
I'll be happy to. Thank you for the question. Well, we've been successful in the last 2 campaigns. Our strength has grown since then. My experience has continued to grow, and we're going to continue on with that string strategy that we've been doing. First, we're very transparent, right? We work hard to work with you folks and to ensure our dealings with the media as well. We've introduced a lot of measures, and we continue to do so till this date. I just came back from a public hearing recently as well on public-private partnerships for football fields, right? To help improve that for our children. We beat the pavement every day, just like you folks do in the Guam Association of Realtors. You have to go out there and you have to be with your constituents, right? And then you got to make the changes. I work hard to get our media to make sure that these bills that we introduce are in the front line, so people can understand and help us support these measures to move forward, especially those that regard the cost of goods and the cost of our homes, right? And the cost of taxes and the price and what it costs to live on Guam. So what we're doing is what we're going to continue to do. So our campaign is many diverse approaches, and it really, the best part is just the ground game. Just like the Guam Association of Realtors, you must meet your constituents. Which in your case is your customers, right? And we're canvassing. We're out there talking to the folks. It's really good when you have the opportunity to meet somebody at their front door and they're willing to talk to you and answer some of the questions. They're asking you tough questions, right? As well. And then now we're into the social media. Right, just like business, you folks all have your social media pages too. You're advertising your product. We do the same thing, and we're key on focusing on key issues and in our messages. What makes me different than from our other candidates too? And I think we distinguish ourselves quite well with my winning team here, and to let you folks know what we're all about. And I'm more than happy to continue that as I go forward to Washington, D.C. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moylan. Ms. Judy Won-Pat, please.
Yeah, I have a pretty strong ground game, primarily such as canvassing, and that's the reason why someday I went canvassing, got caught in the rain. Attending all the pocket meetings, meeting with small groups, listening to them, such as the veterans, educators, those with even cancer patients, people with medical issues. I would meet also with larger groups I actually had offered that every Fridays, but between 12:30 to 2:30 at Asiga to come and have coffee with me, talk to me, tell me what are your issues. I would listen, take your message. I take notes of all of those things because those are definitely issues to follow through. I do printed and electronic media. And of course, the newest things, the social media such as Facebook and Instagram had to be fed up, and have the younger generation, of course, helping to be able to do that. And, waving is always one thing. It's nice to see the people like to see you out there as well. Most important thing with all of this is really to get my message out. And when I talk about securing our families and talking about all our families, meaning our veterans, our Manamco, our disabled, the disadvantaged, we talked about SSI and Medicaid. And when we talk about the economy, basically was to address some of the issues that can go into NDAA to be able to do preferential hiring or treatment of our local workers, to be able to build capacity local, to make sure that these off-island contractors are actually paying their GRTs. I've been told by local subcontractors that that's not necessarily happening. And those are some of the things that have encouraged me to do. And the last is in the platform would be, of course, protecting our environment, because we only have one aquifer here on our island, and it is critical that it be protected because that's what we drink, that's what we bathed in, and it's really important that it be protected. But aside from that as well, included in that will be, taking care of our other resources, our ocean resources as well. So those are some of the issues that, are being discussed as I go out and reach out to the people. So the old-fashioned way of doing things is pressing the flesh and speaking to people.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that answer. The next question regarding insurance will come from Miss Joanne Ige.
Half a day, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Insurance. The National Flood Insurance Program ensures access to vital flood coverage, which is not included in the standard homeowners policy. Today, more than 5 million property owners in 23,000 communities nationwide rely on this program for protection from floods, which cause more lives and property than any other natural disasters in the United States. Without this insurance, these property owners would have to turn back to the federal government for rebuilding assistance after floods, as they did before the program was created in 1968. Recently, the program had a number of short-term extensions ranging from a few weeks to months. It was recently extended through September 30, 2022. Do you support continuation of the National Flood Insurance Program? And please explain. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And I'd like to ask Ms. Judy Won-Pat to answer.
I think it is absolutely critical that, everybody can afford to have flood insurance, especially right now with climate change that's happening. And we are actually seeing that here in our island. Most recently, we just had a torrential rain and flooding has been occurring throughout our island. This is also negatively impacting on our farmers in terms of the agriculture that they are producing to help support our families and sustain our families as well. So it's not just for the home because, like I said, it really impacts all of us around the island. And most importantly, because I don't know if you heard this in the news today, that there's been now throughout the world an increase of rain and the intensity of rain actually occurring, not just in Guam, but in the world. And for us, it's so critical because we are, although we have certain sections of our island that are higher, but we have lower areas and other atolls also in the region as well that are affected. And so I think it should be required, and I think it also should be at a reasonable cost for people. It shouldn't be exorbitant in the terms where people need it for their livelihood. So I definitely do support it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jim Moylan.
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne, for your questions. I sell insurance. I sold insurance, and I sold in property casualty, and I sold homeowners insurance. And when a person is in the flood zone, they must have the flood insurance, because otherwise they won't get the loan. I absolutely support this, and I believe it should be also continued. And the federal government needs to move that forward, because the cost is if it's forced by the lender, it makes it really unaffordable. So I'm glad this program is there, and I understand the importance of the insurance program from my knowledge of that, and particularly when it comes to the family's expectation of recovering from these natural disasters, whether it be the storm bringing in the floods, or whether it be the surf bringing in the floods, right? We need to support our families and support their homes and their livelihood. I would definitely would support reviewing and strengthening long-term viability of the flood insurance plan. It's a must. It should continue, and there's no reason why it should even stop. So I'll be looking into that and seeing how we can expedite this process. So you folks, as the realtors, have the confidence when you sell properties in these flood zones, right, which are beautiful properties, that just in case the 100-year flood comes around, we are prepared. Or the buyers that you sell to are prepared, and the insurance policies are prepared for their moment of truth if disaster does happen. So I definitely, absolutely would support that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those answers. And the next question will come from Mr. Christopher Felix.
Thank you, and I put my eyes on so I could read this. Currently, there is discussion about the role that government should play in the secondary mortgage market, and how the nation's government-sponsored enterprises, GSEs, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, should be handled. NAR, the National Association of Realtors, support the creation of government-chartered shareholders-owned utilities subject to regulation and product types, revenue generation, and expenditures. The new utilities will retain portfolio practices to ensure the mission of Fannie Mae and Freddie to continue to meet the needs of consumers with strong practices to ensure mission of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac with strong taxpayer safeguards and private capital investment. NAR recommends that the utilities be managed to encourage private capital participation in the secondary mortgage market. NAR believes that the future housing finance system must ensure that there is mortgage capital in all the markets and all times under all economic conditions, and that there is an explicit government guarantee in the secondary mortgage market, which should ensure availability.
May I ask Mr. Felix to unmute? We accidentally.
Did I cut off? How much did I lose?
Just a few words there. Maybe that's
Okay, I apologize. My thumb hit the wrong button. The government guarantees secondary market, which should ensure availability of long-term fixed rate mortgage products. For example, 30-year fixed rate. The question is, do you support some level of government participation in the secondary mortgage market to ensure liquidity and the availability of long-term fixed rate mortgage products?
Thank you for the question. I'd like to ask Mr. Moylan to answer first.
Thank you, Chris, for your question. Again, as a property and casualty insurance experience that I've had, I've seen these products come across and how it really helps for the closing of these homes and qualifying for this. This is important. I do support this. I support this 100% to ensuring the availability of a long-term mortgage product. It's important, right? Anything we can do for the homeowner on the financial side, on the federal government side, this is absolutely what I would support. right? And in addition to looking at the reduction of taxes, in addition to making sure property availability of property too, and who can qualify, and infrastructure involved as well. Building homes safely, of course, with the flood insurance, building homes with the right finances, with with the assistance of these products is absolutely my goal. We need to put folks in homes safely. We have a shortage of over 4,000 homes, I understand, and these are all products that are necessary for us to construct these homes safely for the people of Guam, so we can have families grow, right? And this is just the start. So I absolutely support these types of measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Judy Won-Pat.
Thank you. I absolutely agree with this. I think that one of the things that every homeowner would want is to definitely have a long-term fixed, mortgage. I mean, I started the first time with fluctuating rate, and oh my gosh, at that time was the wrong time, I suppose, where it went up as high as 17%, and I quickly had to pay it down as quickly as I could or refinance because it was just too exorbitant. I think that this whole idea is critical then to meet the needs of our consumers. And it's also important to make sure that we have a strong taxpayer safeguards, so that by doing so, then we will be able to have a strong mortgage, market as well. So aside, from that, and especially now when you really think about what's going on where people are unable to afford, buying their own homes. And we know that that is the dream for every family to be able to buy a home, but it makes it so difficult because either interest rates are exorbitant and the cost of the home is too high. And then there is no secondary mortgages that they will be able to avail themselves. And I know because many of my loans that I have even are under Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So I definitely do support this effort as well by the National Association of Realtors.
Thank you very much for those answers. And the next question will come from our president regarding data, privacy, and security.
Thank you, Peggy. Realtors recognize the importance of protecting client data entrusted to them and support common sense data privacy and security safeguards. However, realtors believe that Congress should enact data privacy legislation that avoids burdening small businesses that lack the resources available to larger companies. Under some proposals, realtors and under Main Street business could be forced to hire additional staff, comply with multiple state data privacy and security standards, and implement expensive additional security programs. Would you support legislation that would require common sense, standardized data privacy and security requirements without putting onerous regulations on small businesses?
Thank you for the question, and I'd like to ask Ms. Judy Won-Pat to answer that, please.
Thank you. I totally support, this whole issue as well, to be able to protect small businesses. And like you said, small businesses don't have the luxury of having additional monies to be able to go out and hire these additional people just to try to collect this data and to be in compliance with any legislation. This legislation, yes, has to be reasonable. But what's really important for me as well, and for a lot of small businesses, and I'm sure it is for you as well, is we want to be able to protect those type of information, the privacy of that data. We must put in, yes, the security safeguards, but without having to be able to go in and hire these additional people. When I was talking to the Guam Contractors Association and even to the Guam Trades Academy, they were telling me that a lot of businesses here fail primarily because of information like this, the back room type of work that needs to be done, the extra individuals that they would have to hire to be able to do these things. And I think that that's unreasonable. And, you know, and it's very discouraging for any new young entrepreneur that may want to start out a business and have all these regulatory requirements, especially for something like this, when it comes to data that you have. I mean, the big businesses, I'm sure, would be able to provide this, but surely not the small businesses. So I definitely, you know, want to make sure that they are then in Congress reasonable, you know, requests then for this, and to ensure the protection of data and the, you know, protection of our small businesses.
Thank you very much. Ms. Jim Moylan, Mr. Jim Moylan.
Thank you. Thank you, Liz, for your question as well. You know, as a two-time or my second term in Senate, I've championed many bills and measures that have become public law. I support the small businesses, and that's how I got in the legislature. That was my main purpose. That's what I'm championing, and I will continue to do so. And my main purpose is to eliminate these unnecessary government burdens. I'm just sick of this kind of stuff, right? It's just too much. All these ridiculous requirements, and to include the taxes. You know, but of course, you have to say that diplomatically if you're going to go into Congress, right? But that's where my heart is. We help the small businesses. We get rid of these burdens, government burdens. We get rid of these ridiculous requirements, and we reduce the taxes. And that's how we get people into their homes. And that's how I can support the Guam Association of Realtors and home buyers on Guam by doing that. So thank you very much. I absolutely support that measure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next question will come from Mr. Monty McDowell.
This has to do with taxes. According to the Federal Reserve, the median family net worth for all homeowners was over $255,000 in 2019. While renter families' net worth was $6,300. A new study also found that 80% of renters want to own a home at some point in the future. Studies also show many other social and macroeconomic benefits of home ownership for families, communities, and the nation. Therefore, it is clear that our federal tax and housing policy should do everything reasonably possible to help create and sustain home ownership in America. Question, would you support policies that provide tax incentives, such as tax credits, to encourage and assist individuals and families in purchasing and owning their own home for households who no longer itemize their deductions?
Thank you for the question. We'll ask Mr. Jim Moylan to answer this question first.
Thank you, Monty. Not only do I support, I absolutely support, right? But I've also introduced a measure already to do exactly what you're saying for basically qualifying certificates. Reduce the darn taxes, right? Incentivize the builders to build. You know, stop overtaxing this stuff. With this bill, we could have reduced the price and brought it, given that price reduction to the buyer. Right, I'm a strong advocate for these types of programs, and I'll continue to look for these types of programs in Washington, D.C. And if my bill 2236 doesn't get to the floor this session, I'm going to have it reintroduced by somebody else in the 37th Guam legislature. It's important that we incentivize. There's other aspects, of course, I understand the building permitting process and stuff like that, but in legislation wise, these are things we need to do. We're complaining about the lack of homes being built. We're complaining about the cost of goods, but yet we're seeing this huge budget in the government of Guam. And why aren't we passing that savings down to the home buyers, right? We should be passing these additional monies and savings to the home buyers. That's the important thing for me. This is the bill that I've introduced, 2236. And I sure wish it can move forward in this legislation, but I'm going to work with the future senators to move this forward in the next legislature. So I thank you for that question, and I absolutely will continue to fight for these issues in Washington, D.C. as well. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Judy Wong-Pat.
Thank you. I mean, you know, providing tax credits and tax incentives, I'll tell you, is in the jurisdiction of legislature. So in the local legislature as well, I know I've actually used this mechanism to be able to help build our schools, did that with JFK, did that with Teton High School. So absolutely, I support that their companies be given, or individuals in this particular case be given some incentive to encourage them and to assist individuals or even families to be able to earn and purchase their own homes, their first home. And like I stated earlier, that was one of the bills that I had introduced. And I know we're talking federal, but this was local, just to demonstrate the use of monies to be able to help families. And that was the first $10,000 for Guam Housing for first-time homeowners. So that is an ongoing project. It's definitely welcomed by our families. So I think it's important that yes, we do it not just on the side, like I said, for government type projects, but especially now, more so now, to be able to help our families, because we're seeing individuals. Take, for example, one of my staff told me there are 4 of them living together to rent a place because they can't afford rent. I have another staffer who lives with her mother, father, sisters, brothers, and she has to sleep on the couch because they can't afford to buy a home either. These families would love to be able to have some incentive, some tax credits, so that they will be able then to earn and purchase their own home. So I wholeheartedly believe in this and will support it as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those answers. And our next question will come from Ms. Claire Delgado.
Okay, Peggy, this is question B on page 6, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The tax cuts, sorry, my glasses are gone. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act placed a temporary through 2025 $10,000 limit on the deductibility of state and local taxes. The same limit applies for both joint tax returns to single filers, creating an onerous marriage penalty. This cap, combined with limits on other itemized deductions and an increase in standard deduction, directly and indirectly decreases the tax benefits of purchasing and owning a home. At minimum, the marriage penalty should be alleviated and the limit be indexed for inflation. Do you support eliminating the marriage penalty in the SALT, that's state and local taxes cap, by doubling the limit to $20,000 for joint returns and also indexing the limit for future inflation?
Ms. Judy Won-Pat? Yes, please.
Oh my gosh, it's really unfortunate if we're going to encourage then marriage because of these tax, cuts. And then I truly don't support, something like that to be able to tax them, or that they would have to go around and then file individually. So I support eliminating the penalty for marriage and, and even doubling, yes, the limit. It was 10,000 to now 20,000 then for joint returns. So, I mean, it's a no-brainer when you think about this, unless of course you just, you have only individuals. But for the most part, when you think about, people owning, their own place and are filing either on their own, that, yes, it might be beneficial for some of them to do it individually, but surely that we should not penalize any, couple, any marriage, have a marriage rather penalty. So I definitely will support eliminating that penalty.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jim Moylan, please.
Thank you, Claire, for your questions. Just what we talked about, eliminating these unnecessary burdens and small businesses on these taxes. I certainly support this measure as well to avail to these tax benefits when purchasing a home. Again, we have such a great shortage in homes, right? I understand the market now is even selling market is it's so limited, right? And we have so many homes we need to build. So absolutely, I support eliminating this, right? Or helping to help our families much more. So, I've been doing this since the 35th and the 36th, and I'll continue to do this further. And I'll be looking at federal programs that can help us to make sure that Guam is included with this. So I absolutely support that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next question will come from Mr. Christopher Felix.
This is about 1031 like-kind exchange. The rules for real estate have been firmly fixed in tax laws since 1921, and for good reason. The like-kind exchange is a basic tool that allows capital to flow more freely among the real estate investments, which facilitates commerce and supports economic growth and job creation. Studies show that in contrast to the common view, and replacement properties in a like-kind exchange are frequently disposed of in a subsequent exchange to potentially avoid capital gain indefinitely. A very high percent of properties acquired in such an exchange are disposed of through a taxable sale, resulting in higher taxes to the Treasury. So Section 1031 is used by all sizes and types of real estate owners. Moreover, a recent survey of our members indicate that nearly 70% of realtors have participated in a 1031 like-kind exchange over the past 4 years. Therefore, real estate investors and realtors place a very high priority on retaining the current like-kind exchange rules. The question is, while no legislation has been introduced in the current Congress to repeal or curtail the 1031 like-kind exchanges, some candidates for federal office have indicated they support repealing or severely curtailing Section 1031. Would you support keeping this important provision in our tax code?
Thank you for the question. I would like to ask Mr. Jim Moylan to answer this first.
Thank you, Chris, for the question. Absolutely, I would support keeping this important provision in our tax code. No doubt. Once again, I'm not interested in creating additional hurdles for us to go through or new burdens upon businesses. We're making an investment into people's livelihood. They have this opportunity. Let's keep that code. This Republican is not going to eliminate that code, and it's going to help the people of Guam, and I'm going to ensure that that is included, and Guam is included in that measure in my trip to DC. So I definitely support that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we are reaching the end of our town hall, and I'd like to defer to Mr. John Duenas for any thoughts or additional comment.
Did we give Judy Wampat an opportunity to answer that?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Miss Judy Wampat, yes.
No worries. Thank you. I definitely do feel that, yes, it should be kept in our tax code. I do not support the repeal of it. And, you know, there's this saying, if it ain't broke, why, fix it? That type of thing. I mean, you've just stated the data of, about what 70% actually do uses this like kind of exchange, rule actually in real estate actually works, and what it does allow for capital, flow among, the real estate, tenants. So therefore, I definitely will not support any repeal of this. I think it is important for businesses. That's what, happens. And when you have a piece of property, an investment property, and you want to turn around and sell it for a like type, again, investment, then, definitely the individual, the owner should be continue with that type of, a policy as provided by law. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And once again, pardon me for that oversight. Would like to allow each of our candidates to have their closing remarks up to 3 minutes. And I'd like to start with Ms. Judy Wampat for that, please.
Thank you again very much for this opportunity. And as I stated, I'm running because this is a critical time to leverage Guam's strategic value for the benefit of our people. I will be fighting to secure our families, strengthen our economy, and protect our environment, because all of these determine whether Guam thrives or not. But even with all the data and evidence to show that Guam needs more from the federal government, it would take good old-fashioned hard work to get results. This is what I do best. I won't quit until the job is done. I have a record of building strong relationships, listening to stakeholders, and following through. This matters when you're a small island among big states and you have a non-voting delegate. I will remind Washington that we are not just the tip of the spear. We are teachers, farmers, nurses, firefighters, students, veterans, parents. We are scientists. We are Guam first. I'm Judy Wonpat, and I humbly ask for your vote. Sijus Masi.
Thank you very much, Ms. Judy Wonpat, and followed by Mr. Jim Moylan.
Thank you, Peggy, and thank you, Guam Association of Realtors, for those questions. I'm happy to answer that. I'm very honored to be part of this discussion. I'm looking forward to heading to Washington to continue the fight for Guam and working closer with the United States to help support our efforts here for the people of Guam. For the last 2 terms, I've asked for the Guam Association of Realtors support, and I believe I stood up to those measures that I promised that I would do in sessions. And I will continue to stand and support our islands and Guam Association of Realtors in their efforts nationally and locally as well. I'm looking forward to getting more people with our efforts combined, getting more people into homes. We have this critical shortage of homes on our island, and it can be solved with the relationship of building with the United States, Congress, and the relationships I've established with the congressional candidates and getting their endorsements, and the relationship that is critical, I believe, for Congress, for a Republican representative to be in that seat, to move the island forward as we grow together. I'm looking forward to this opportunity. I have the energy to do it. I'm just so excited to represent our island, and I'll be very proud to represent the people of Guam. I'm Jim Moylan, and I humbly ask for your support as well. And I also like to address former Speaker Wonpat. I hope you get well too. Take care of that quote. So thank you very much once again, Guam Associations of Realtors. And please get out there and vote. Tell everybody to get out there and vote. It's important. And I thank you.
Thank you very much for those closing remarks. I'd like to defer to Mr. John Duenas for his. Next is Mr. Monty McDowell, thereafter our president.
Thank you very much, candidates. Those questions from NAR are very pointed, because there are forces in political leadership that actually threaten some of those programs that you have spoken about. So thank you for your answers, and good luck on your campaign.
If I could share that this is tough. Mamalate Hamzu, you're so intelligent, you're so charismatic, you're such prominent members of our community, you're good people. You said, this is just going to be such a hard, you're just great candidate. I wish we could send 2 people to Congress and it'd be you 2. So it's thank you for taking time out of your schedule and being with the Guam Association of Realtors. And I'd like to thank also all these great panelists here that are part of John's group that he put together as the chairman of the election committee for GAR. And Liz, closing remarks.
Yes, I just want to say Sijus Masi for both of your attendance. And I thank you for our over 600 members who will be listening in and make a decision on who to vote for. We hope one of you make it. We can't have 2. And I want to say that with all the branches of government, it is a collaboration of effort between the different local organizations. And, it's important that we all help each other for the benefit of our island and listening. The Guam Association of Realtors has always been vocal. We'll pound on your doors and put our foot through the door to make sure we get in to be heard. But again, it's a collaboration of effort with all the branches of government. Thank you for your efforts of being here and sharing your views on the different questions that were given. Sidus Masi, and we're going to move on to the gubernatorial interview.
Thank you very much once again. And just to remind everybody, we only have one link to use for the remainder of our town hall. So simply put a pause and we will resume promptly at 1:15. Yes, 1:15. We will resume promptly at 1:15 for our gubernatorial town hall. So stand by for that. Thank you once again, Ms. Judy Wonpat and Mr. Jim Moylan.
To give the rules and guidelines.
Well, thank you. And again, welcome, Governor Camacho and Tony Ada for joining us today. I got some rules of the road. I'm not sure how pertinent they are when you're the only one answering the questions. So, but we'd like to just keep the responses to 3 minutes, and you're welcome to choose which one of you would like to answer the question. Obviously, if one of you answer the question, I'm pretty sure the other person has the same opinion. So we'll give you 3 minutes for an introduction with your full name, your brief background, why you're running for the position. And on each question, 2 minutes. And when you come within 15 seconds of the end of the 2 minutes, Peggy's background will turn yellow. And when your 2 minutes is up, it'll turn red. It won't look quite as, it'd be redder than those roses behind her. There's the yellow, and that's the red. There you go. Yeah. That's pretty much it. At the end, we'll give you a few minutes to do closing. We want to thank you very much. Obviously, you've got lots of experience. You've done this numerous times before, so we won't belabor you too much. And the chairman of this election committee is actually John Duenas, so I turn the floor over to John.
Thank you, Monty. I was I was going to say we could have a game of charades here, where maybe not charades, but a double identity. I know when I go out and play golf, sometimes I play against myself, and I'm JC and I'm JD, and so I was thinking maybe you could respond for the other side, but we won't do that because that won't be fair. Anyway, thank you very much for appearing and for addressing our membership. We posed questions that we thought were very important and important to our membership, and we look forward to hearing your answers. I know we received your questionnaire filled out, and but now you have a chance to articulate that. Thank you very much. I guess we can turn it over to Peggy, who will move on to introductions, right?
Looks like your time's up. It's already red, John.
Thank you very much. This is going to be just as valuable to all our realtors and all the other audience to hear our candidates that are here. So we thank you once again for taking the time. Please take a moment to convey your welcoming remarks, your opening remarks, up to 3 minutes each. And we'll start with our gubernatorial candidate, Mr. Felix Camacho, thereafter, Mr. Tony Ada.
All right, thank you. We very much appreciate this opportunity to appear before the Guam Association of Realtors, the GAR, as you will, and of course to answer questions regarding many issues that are affecting your industry. I find it, I very much appreciate the opportunity to appear before you. As a homeowner, and together with my siblings as property owners in the market out there, we have fully felt the effects of it. And like many others that have tried to build a house and have rental units and the like, we understand the challenges and difficulties out there. But at the same time, happy to contribute to this economy. I'm running because I felt a calling. I was happily retired, of course, being out of government for roughly 12 years, but having served 2 terms as a governor and 4 terms as a senator. But prior to that, my life had been in the private sector. And offering my experiences at a time, a very critical time, I believe, in our history, where we have been through the most difficult of times with this pandemic and a total shutdown and lockdown of our economy and our lives, that I felt I had to step off the sidelines and offer myself with the many experiences I've had both as a lawmaker and as a governor, to come and serve yet again for the benefit of the next generation. I'm very much interested in mentoring and getting that next generation, the generation of promise, to step up and fulfill their will and purpose in their time. But with regard to the real estate and all, we're very happy to answer your questions today. I'll turn it over to Senator Tony Ada.
Hafa day, everyone. Thank you to the Guam Association of Realtors for allowing us to be here today to speak with you about the different issues that that you presented to us on the questionnaire. As you all know, I've worked many legislations with GAR, and before introducing, I always come to get the input from the membership on the effects that the legislation would have, and the consequences, so that we can address it prior to introduction. I'm Tony Ada. I'm serving my 5th term as in the Guam legislature, and like Governor Camacho, we want to do what we can to effectuate policies that were placed in through the legislature, and now in the executive branch, taking those policies and working with it, but most especially working with you so that we can do what we can to make our island better for not just investors, but also for those who call Guam home, home ownership, home rentals, apartment rentals, whatever it may be. That's what we want to do, is to work together with the people who are out there in the community that knows what's going on, what needs to be done, and how we can do it effectively together, so that in the end, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel, but we're just trying to work it so that the people of Guam will be able to benefit from it. So again, thank you for this opportunity to be with you and to talk with you. And we look forward to the questions that come forward and our answers to those questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, I'd like to defer the first question to Mr. Christopher Felix.
Thank you, Governor, Senator. Increase in real estate tax rate for the properties with improvements valued at $1 million or more. As you know, Public Law 35-1 became law on March 2nd, 2019 to correct an error in the previous law created by the 34th legislature to make clear that the law imposes an additional 100% tax levy on Guam real property with property improvement values at 1 million or more. This additional tax levy has created a severe financial burden to a certain class of property owners, and most especially to residential and commercial tenants whose rental spaces happen to be in buildings valued at $1 million or more, being that the additional cost of the tax levy will most surely be passed on to the tenants. And the question is, will your team introduce or support legislation to repeal this law?
Well, I'll begin, and of course, Senator can jump in, but I don't believe that the general public had any idea of exactly how unfair this tax is to residential property owners and also to commercial tenants. As you know, for example, a condominium complex with 10 individually owned units is valued at $2 million, for example, in the real estate. It's assessed on the value of the complex, while the payment for the taxes is divided among, say, the 10 individual owners. In this case, each unit is valued at 200,000. So the inequity of this situation is that each condo owners are paying taxes on the 1 million, as opposed to an individual owner of a single family detached home at 200,000. And so we feel that it is absolutely unfair, and there is a definite need to perhaps, if legislation is introduced that would again repeal this law, we feel that it is absolutely necessary. We would support this. And of course, the impact upon multi-family residential units has been unfair. Retail space, we felt it ourselves, being owners of retail space, our tenants, we'd have to pass on the cost of that. And it definitely had hurt in a very difficult time when there were lockdowns and shutdowns. Our tenants would not be able to pay rent, but still we had to pay the banks, we have to pay the government. So there is a definite need to understand the impact that this has had and repeal it.
Yeah,
Senator? Yeah.
and and this is what I was talking about in the very beginning on our opening statement, where putting forth legislation to the association prior to introduction, so that we know what the impact would be, and not backpedaling now, where we're saying, oh my goodness, look at what it's done over the past couple of years. But as Governor Camacho said, we will look at repealing this, and this is something that should be repealed, and it's not there's no equity in it for anyone, be it condominium owners, apartment owners, or even commercial establishments. And perhaps the repeal of this law would at least bring down some of the costs for rentals, or even on apartments and homes, and that's commercial space, and that's what we hope
Absolutely.
for.
Yes, and when I think of the property tax, it's at normally at about 0.5% of the assessed value of the land. The assessed value really is 35% of, according to our laws, of the appraised value of the property or the market value, and then typically there's an additional 1% on the value of the building. So with this new law, I think it moved it up to 7 1/18% of the value. So repealing of this will definitely help on rental rates for tenants and improve the situation.
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that answer. And I'd like to find out if there's a follow-up question to this from our panelists. I see none. We will proceed to the next question from Mr. John Dwayne.
Thank you, Peggy. In my other life, other than being a principal broker of a realty company, I'm also principal engineer of a consulting company, and I have firsthand view of the building permit process and how it can affect the success or failure of projects. So the topic is improving the building permit process. Property owners seeking to construct improvements on their property, as well as contractors engaged to construct such improvements, are confronted by a building permit application and occupancy permit process that, to date, is beset with unreasonable and unresponsive review periods, sometimes unresponsible or unreasonable, inconsistent and shifting permit requirements of certain review agencies, and in particular, certain individual reviewers, and a frustratingly linear review process. It seems that no one, individual or commercial enterprise, is immune to the adverse effects of the current building permit application and occupancy permit issuance process. The question is, how will your team improve and expedite the building permit application and the occupancy permit issuance process?
Thank you for that, John.
I'm sorry. I was going to just make mention that we will give the candidates 2 minutes each to answer, as you please.
Okay. Thank you, John. With as much technology as we have today, especially over the past year and a half with the COVID-19 pandemic, it's amazing that we don't have a process down yet to implement expedited permitting clearance process. However, when we look at what we want to do, I think we need to look at all the departments and agencies and see where is it that they're lacking. And that's where the expertise of like yourself, you know what it takes to go to Department of Land Management or Department of Public Works or, Parks and Recreation. If there's a certain permit that doesn't need, for example, if you're doing a renovation inside the mall, I don't believe you need a permit, clearance from Parks and Recreation or, Department of Agriculture. I mean, we need to start streamlining these processes down so that what we want to do is only make those that are applicable for clearance that the person would have to go through. And the other thing is, what we can also do is build or have a more effective one-stop permit center. And what we need to do is put the personnel that have the experience in those different agencies and departments, put them forward so that they can be doing this process simultaneously so that, the process works faster. And if we can also try to work with the legislature, and that's what we want to do, is work with the legislature, that currently, if you send down your rules and regulations to the legislature, and the legislature does not act in it by amending, rejecting, or approving, then it automatically gets approved within 45 days. So that's something that maybe we can also look at, that if an agency or department has not approved that process in 30, 45 days, whatever it may be, then, it moves on. It's automatically cleared and moved on to the next department.
Okay. Well, I think the question laid out all the problems that the building permit review process is slow and unresponsive. And anyone who's known, or it's well known among contractors, engineers, property owners, anybody who's had to experience this permit process knows that there are many problems. But what happens again when there's all these delays of the issuances and they're unreasonable is that these economically beneficial projects are delayed and end up costing the more than what was originally budgeted. Also, as you wait for the occupancy permit, these construction improvements are sitting there and become a target for robbers and vandals that would destroy it. Then there's also the physical, personal, and spiritual enjoyment provided by completed projects that are delayed. You can ask developers and homeowners how they suffer just waiting for these things to happen. And then the government itself suffers in the fact that the receipts of revenues that can be generated by completed projects are further delayed. So the economy suffers, the people suffer. Now, we all know that this permitting system exists to protect and to serve the public. The protection is provided by adherence, of course, to our current and reasonable construction codes, our policies and practices. But the service aspect of it is what belongs to the government of Guam. And so when that system is inefficient and unresponsive, the service that the public deserves is poorly delivered. And so how can we fix this? Number one, I know that they've implemented a new digital tracking system. Give it a chance to work itself out. Secondly, establish standards of performance for the permit reviews and issuance, including mandatory time limits for the review of permit applications and issuing of occupancy permits. Third, we can establish procedures for dealing with what are considered to be problematic applications. Now, and what is defined as problematic, there should be a solid justification for that designation. It should be grounded in perhaps a code violation or an illegality. And then for those that are processing these permits, if the permit applications, if there's anything, they need a quick feedback on any problems so that can resolve it. Also, I think that we need to begin to consider outsourcing of the review of permits, if you will, to qualified consulting firms in some form of a public-private partnership. We also should provide more resources for the building and permit review system. Thank you. I know my time's up, so thank you.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to ask if there are any follow-up questions before we proceed.
I have a follow-up.
Okay. we'll
I
start
just
with-
wondered, as far as development goes, do you have any comments on the situation that in and around the SHPO and some of the, what we consider sometimes to be the unreasonable demands or requirements the SHPO puts on developers that wasn't factored in to the cost, and all of a sudden, you're going from $10,000 to $100,000 worth of things, requirements that you'd never even considered you'd have to do. Thank you.
I can take a crack at it.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, we've heard many concerns about the SHPO and the unreasonable demands they put on individuals or developers that are pursuing things. We've also heard a lot of complaints about Guam EPA and the process that goes on there. I've come to know that over time, when individuals are given a certain responsibility, if they're not mindful of their duties and responsibilities, they take this responsibility and begin to lord over it. And you've got to have proper management in place that if someone is out of line or unreasonable, there's certain guidelines that by which they ought to adhere to, and there's a certain amount of reasonableness, and there has to be a consistency in the application of the rules and regulations. Secondly, many a time there are rules and regulations that have been put in place and nobody even knows the source of it. Where did it come from? How did it originate? Was it a memorandum? Was it a decision made at the executive level by the director or an agency head or department head or section head? Is it codified in law? Was it an executive order? So I think there's a real need to go back and take a look at, the whole concept of we do this because we've always done it. This has always been the process. We need to transform our way of thinking and accept the fact that this is an opportunity to change things. They say you never put new wineskins to an old wineskin. You got to put it into new skins, otherwise it's going to burst. So coming in, we want to be able to look at what works, what's efficient, and the real identification of where the problems are from those of you, the applicants that face this day in and day out for every project. You have a clear definition of what the problems are, and you probably have a pretty clear idea on what ought to be implemented to bring about the change that services all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our Senator Ada, would you like to answer that too?
I agree with the governor, and those issues that are at SHPO, and once again, these are things that we need to go back to the legislature at and ensure that all these the processes that are going through, that if they're not codified, then if it's done by executive order, let's repeal that executive order. Let's look at ways to streamline the process so that we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just continue to roll with it and ensure that the process, it will be a much smoother, easier permitting process for those that, especially when time is a constraint, when, just by holding a permit back for 30 to 60 days could cost, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. And that's not what we want. We want investors to come here and know that when they move their paperwork forward, that they will be able to get it done in a timely manner without additional costs to them.
If I may, can I just add?
Yes.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
Another thing that many have complained about is the fact that if there are problems and difficulties with their application, from whatever regulatory agency there is, that if a complaint is made to that individual or processor's superior or boss or director, I've seen it even go up to senators and even to the office of the governor, there's going to be a price to be paid, and they'll give you even a harder time and delay things, and there's some price to pay. That is something that we really need to take that practice of out of it, where if you have a legitimate complaint and you complain about it, you're going to pay the price. And secondly, we also know that if you know somebody within the system, if you know somebody within a particular agency, if you talk to them, maybe you can move the process along. But this form of favoritism, because you know somebody, can be a cause of concern, because it could lead to some form of corruption. It could favoritism and the like. And if we just bring about equity, fairness, and doing what is right and just, everybody does their job, they stay in their lane, a lot would be accomplished. And we want to bring this mindset, this attitude of service to the government that is supposed to protect and provide the public service. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another question from Mr. Carl Peterson. After that, that would be Mr. Chris Felix, and then Elizabeth Duenas. These are all follow-up questions to the original one about the improving the building permit process.
Okay.
Glad to hear that you folks are mentioning that in effect, capital is fungible. It'll go anywhere where there's a friendly environment, where the tax policy is not going to take all their profits, and that where the profits is repatriated to the investor, because time is money. And
right,
like Mr. Ada said, it could cost that project, if it's a big project and you're sitting there for a month, 2 months, or 6 months, or whatever, before you get any action on it. Well, that's the investor's got to have the capital ready to go, and it's just sitting there doing nothing. So it's a lot of cost. Second thing is we haven't mentioned recording fees in land management. I don't know how many of you have had trouble with recording deeds, but we do financial planning. So there's a lot of deed recording in transfer to a living trust, for instance. And getting through land management, first of all, you got to go in and get an appointment to see them, to record the document. That's just to record it there. It's not to record it as a final deed, because there's a committee that does that. Just to record your paperwork, you need an appointment, and that could be several weeks from the time you went there to get the appointment. And people are really frustrated with the system when they have to wait that long to get in there to record the paperwork. So there's a lot of things that impact development, and a lot of things that impact actually tax revenues to the government. In the long run, it's tax revenues to the government, and the government is stopping it. So like getting occupancy permit. We had a case once where they said, well, you have to go over there first to record, get them to sign first. Well, it was over at GWA. So you drive from Public Works over to GWA, and then you get there and they said, oh no, Public Works has to sign first, not us. And then you go back to Public Works and says, no, absolutely, they got to do it. And you're running back and forth like they can't decide who has the authority to sign stuff. It's just a frustrating system. And if you're new to the island, or you're building your first house, or whatever it is, you can't stand that. So just keep that in your quiver there when you have a chance.
Yeah. And I think it really speaks to the fact that the process is linear. One agency first, then the next, and then you got to circle back when there really ought to be a simultaneous permitting process where every agency is working on their set of plans individually and collectively, and then that should straighten things out. So there's a definite need to overhaul the permitting process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does Senator Ada want to provide his comment as well?
I think Governor Camacho has already mentioned it, and then we're going to continue to work at this, and we're going to continue to strengthen the process, and also the what is going to be the best solution for this permitting process issue.
Thank you very much. And the next question will come from our next follow-up question to the permitting process will come from Mr. Chris Felix. Then we have our President Liz Duenas after.
Yeah, I don't want to belabor the point. Carl was talking about the problems with buying it, owning it. John's talking about building it. My problem picks up after that with managing it. And that what I'm talking about is business licensing and renewal of the business licensing. It's just, it becomes absolute insanity. And we just, you know, the very similar problem of dealing with different government agencies. Every time someone buys a project, they have to go back in and get a whole new business license, which means inspections from Public Works and from Fire Department. 60, 90 days where you, the government, is going to lose the GRT, the business, the BPT. You're going to lose it because I'm going to be renting my place and I'm not going to pay till I get my license because I can't. You know, it's that kind of silliness that where you lose, I lose. And then every year I got to renew my business license. Every year, you know, I do about 200 business license renewals because of what I manage for all the people. And every year the same, where you go to gross receipt tax and they say you didn't file January 1983. You have to get January 1983 GRT filing. You know, it's 2022. Can we kind of put an end to the? Can Revitax say if it isn't more than if it's more? You can't ask for things every year the same thing, and I got to keep digging it up and handing it to you. Those kind of things where we can streamline, get things simpler and easier. I don't mind paying my renewal license fees. It's just the length and the breadth of all of this. Thank you. Sorry.
Very good point.
And they quote the
Automatic
city.
renewals,
Very
extended
much.
terms instead of annual. We should extend it out 2-3 years. There's many things that perhaps we can all work on and look at other jurisdictions and how they do things right. We don't need to recreate the wheel. Let's take lessons learned elsewhere and make things more efficient and streamlined. I agree.
Thank you very much. And I think our final follow-up question will come from our President Liz Duenas.
I'm sure both of you may have had this discussion, but I'd like to hear it from you about, you know, people who are running around trying to get permits. Time is limited, projects are waiting, yet they're presented with COVID hours, as Chris has brought up, and maybe Carl. COVID hours, people working out of the home, people not showing up to work. It's ridiculous. We're past COVID. And hopefully you two have a game plan to deal with getting people to work or get the heck out of government, get into the private sector, because if you were in the private sector, you'd be out of a job. And so I hope you have a game plan to address the people that aren't working yet getting paid. The private sector is breaking their backs trying to make ends meet, and yet the government sector has issues that have not been dealt with.
Well, Liz, you have a very good point there. It seems again where I think we go back to the emergency declaration, which dates back to March of 2020. We're 31 months into what is now a state of emergency, and you know I think it's Dr. Shea that said, well, if the point of staying in a state of emergency, medical emergency, is for more money, then you know we'll never get out of it. It just seems that after 2.5 years, going on 3 years, that the government of Guam has been shut down. They're in a comatose state. They've got to get back up and working in it. I do understand, as you said, you know, even when you go to DPW for the permitting section, you've got to sign in a log sheet, and then you got to wait outside for your number to be called. And then when your name or number is called, you would eventually go in and everybody's standing behind a shield. And sometimes there's no one else in there and you wonder, why were you waiting outside? So we've got to get out of this mindset and of this state of emergency, because obviously it's no longer the case. and get back to work. The private sector has been struggling, and the challenge has been this, like one individual on the street said to me, there seem to be people are, at least employees and organizations are living in different worlds. If you're working for the federal government, or if you're working as a Department of Defense as a full-time employee or active duty, you're going to get your paycheck every 2 weeks. If you work for the government of Guam, they've been able to find ways, of course, with the budget process passed and the moving of money around, that you were told to go home, not come to work, and you're going to get your paycheck every 2 weeks. But they said if you're in the private sector, man, you've been told to go home, not go to work. How many hundreds, if not 1,000+ businesses have been shut down, have gone bankrupt, and people have, even those that are employable are saying, well, why go to work when I can stay home and get more money from these federal benefits and monies than if I went in and worked full time. So we've got to get out of this malaise and this stupor and a bit of a comatose state that we have, and get back to recognizing that we're here to serve the people. And that's what GovGuam is supposed to do, is they are public servants. And so the reality of it is that the governor still keeps us in this state of emergency to milk the system. I mean, when you think about the carrier, the Theodore Roosevelt that was here, what did she say? Yeah, we're milking the feds, and we're milking them really hard. And so if you're staying in this, it's no longer a medical emergency or state of emergency. It's really done for political purposes and financial purposes. The authority of a governor, when they're in this state of emergency, and the executive powers that they have and authority is tremendous. And they've certainly used it to their advantage. When you think of the political season which we're in, it's very obvious what's going on out there. But we've got to get the people back to work, especially GovGuam and those in the service areas, regulatory services also. So thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Governor.
Yeah.
GovGuam needs to, the governor has declared that the state of emergency for public health is only to ensure that the GovGuam will be able to avail of the funding, SNAP and things like that, keep the National Guard on point. No one's wearing masks any longer. There's no more social distancing. There's no protective barriers. We need to open up our agencies back to normal operating hours so that our community can come back and start making a living again. Because the longer that they continue to hamper the ability of the private sector to get back to normal, that is going to continue to deplete the tax base revenues of the government, because there is no longer federal funding, ARP funding that will be coming in. And, unless we start building up our tax bases from the private sector, we're going to see a very difficult time in the near future. And all this should have actually been done 6, 8, 12 months ago. So we need to get our government back online and continuing to operate at normal operating hours and extended hours if necessary to catch up what is been backlogged over these past couple of years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next question will come from our president as well regarding housing shortage.
Okay, Guam has experienced a severe housing shortage due to a variety of reasons. These include rising costs of construction, labor and materials, rising mortgage interest rates, construction loan interest rates, the unresponsive and stifling building permit application process, lengthy, cumbersome land use permitting process, increasingly restrictive environmental regulations, and constraints placed upon local housing developments by competing and more lucrative military construction contracts and H-2 visa labor restrictions. What executive branch actions or policies will your team implement with commitment and purpose to address and resolve Guam's severe housing shortage?
I can begin by just stating that I know that one area of concern is those with the moderate income families that have been having a difficult time in being able to afford to purchase and buy or build their homes. I know that right now the mortgage rates with the banks, there've been increases, 30 years fixed at 6.69% right now, 15-year, I believe is fixed at 6.02. And then you've got the 10-year adjustable mortgage rate, the ARM's at 6.21, and then the 15-year ARM at 5.59%. And with these rates, it really is not a good time for first-time homeowners, right, to go out and purchase at these rates. These are issues, of course, rates that are beyond our control, a result of what's happening in the federal government and under the Biden administration, the rate of inflation and the like. But I know that one thing that we want to really pursue would be what's called SUTA, S-U-T-A, the substantially underserved trust areas. With that kind of designation for Guam as a whole, it really provides for SUTA. Really, it's defined as an area or community lacking an adequate level or quality of service. And SUTA is, of course, a program under the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Rural Development. It provides infrastructure funding for many like water, wastewater, and other utilities. And this was part, I think it goes back to the 2008 Farm Bill. It is currently administered by the Rural Utilities Services, or RUS. And of course, the Secretary of the Department of Agriculture is the one who would determine what area has a high need for assistance. If we're able to get this designation for Guam, then I see that it will provide and authorize RUS to provide tools for us to finance improvements in our community. And with interest rates as low as 2%. So if we were able to then seek funding for rural electrification, that's one of the areas where there are direct and guaranteed loans. You've got high energy cost grants for GPA. You've got water and wastewater grants and guaranteed loans, and of course broadband direct guaranteed loans. So if we are able to do this as a government, would get these kind of funding and build the infrastructure for example, Chamorro Land Trust lands, and deal with all these other areas where you've got I think the groundwater protection zone, GPZ, that affects the descendant estates and parental subdivisions. We can help homeowners in that cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Ada.
Yeah, he could have taken my 2 minutes too. Okay. You know, what we can also look at is what can we do to perhaps exempt BPT or use tax to contractors in helping to build homes on island. And I think that when we look at these issues, that if an individual that wants to build a home and the contractor can get the materials at the cost less the BPT or the use tax, whatever it may be, it may be able to make that home more affordable. And you know, these are programs that we also want to look into on helping the contractors or helping the developers or helping the realtors, you know, get these type of programs working and moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. I'd like to find out from the panelists if there are any follow-up questions, please. I see Mr. Carl Peterson. Go ahead, please.
Okay, well, none of us, at least those that are 65 or older, are living in their first house. You started out with something basic, and then you got, it's like driving in the dark. You drive as far as you can see, and when you get there, you can see further. And it's like starting with a new house, a beginner's house. So what I'm saying is that if we put out is like selling GTA. You put out a bid, and how would you approach this? Give us recommendations and a way that you would participate in the bid process of building affordable homes that would meet the size standard and the basic requirements and et cetera. And you will get a lot of bids. There'd be a lot of people who would want to do that, but it won't be a castle. It will be a smaller house. And we get people started in ownership, and then they keep stepping up during their lifetime. But we start with something and then not eliminate, but reduce the requirements that those contractors have to abide by, because they're providing a product or service that is really going to be helpful to us. There's a lot of things that can be done to help low-income housing, but it can't be with the golden slipper that you have to meet all the requirements in order to build the house. First-time homeowners will live in houses that are not as great as when they're 65.
Very good points. As we know, the territory is dealing with the cost of construction, the cost of shipping, the cost of goods and services, the lack of labor. We're dealing with homelessness and people out there on the streets. So there are many challenges ahead. And you're right, Carl. Is a single family dwelling unit the absolute starting point for first-time homeowners? Could we begin to think of building up? Could we think of the fact that land is very precious and difficult to come by now? How can we work with many families that have inherited property from their parents, grandparents, or generations ahead of them that are still trying to resolve these issues in court, in probate? System development fees, when one is told how much they're going to have to pay for water and power to bring in, and sewer line if it's even available, which is why I mentioned the SUDA program. If we're able to, as a government, get this type of financing available to bring in infrastructure in large tracts of land, for example, even Chamorro Land Trust land, and as you said, take the ideas of what is the best approach and how to build these, and could these be starter homes? I know even in the state of Hawaii and other places, they've even resorted to mini homes. And back in the day with Ken Jones, with the Butler type homes that he built in, I recall even in my day as a kid, we had the old Quonset huts that people had converted. Even my grandfather, Felix Camacho, where the GPO is located right now, he took these Quonset huts that were left behind by the military, got a plumber, got an electrician, got a carpenter, and converted these Quonset huts into residential units for rent. And many people that came to Guam from outside, from throughout Micronesia, looking for a job or a place to stay after the war, settled in. So there are many ideas that we need to explore, but the government doesn't have all the answers. The answers are there with the private sector and the creativity and the energy that you bring. So Tony and I would like to work collaboratively with the Association of Realtors, Contractors, Developers. And in my time, of course, we brought in low-income housing tax credits. We worked with Ironwood Development, and Mr. Ho came in under Cortec. These ideas we even brought to Saipan, and they've done it, I think, with Bob Jones and their organization. So we're open to thinking outside the box and looking for opportunities on how we can resolve this issue.
Yeah, and that's why it goes back to the experts once again, and that's those in the association, and pooling from you guys to the knowledge and resources and networking that you have that can help us to ensure that we're able to move the policies forward that we're looking for in not just affordable homes, but homes that are affordable for those who want to purchase one. I mean, I remember way back when they used to have the modular homes that Jones and Guerrero used to build back in the day. Is that something that can come back and as structures for families to get them off the streets and into homes. And what is it that we can work with the federal government on insurance for those homes, or with it's just, there's so many things that we can do, but like I said, we just need the expertise of those that are in the business, and that's you folks, to help us to navigate this trail so that we can become successful in ensuring that people that want to have a home, that they're able to.
Yeah. And if I can just add, I've thought about bringing in, and I've attempted to bring in different types of technology and building materials and different building systems for residential houses. The first problem you're going to have is, what is the cost of shipping of these materials in? If it's not generated or manufactured on Guam, you've got a high shipping cost to bring in the raw material, first of all. Secondly, once you have that concept, is it insurable? Because if it's not insurable against typhoons and earthquakes and fire and the like, the banks aren't going to finance it. So, those are factors you have to include: the insurance industry, what is insurable, what is acceptable for the mortgage industry and the banks. And so there are many moving parts, as you all know, but we've got to continue to look for alternatives and ways to address this shortage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next question will come from Mr. Monty McDowell regarding the BPT. I'd like to ask Mr. Monty McDowell to unmute, please.
Thanks, Peggy. This is the famous question on BPT. We raised it up to 5%, and it was just going to be for a short period. It's just temporary, and nothing more permanent than a temporary classroom, And so we want to basically know, if the legislature was to pass a law that said, okay, let's repeal it, would you sign it? And if they wouldn't, if they don't even entertain it, would you try to write a law yourself and get them to entertain it, your law, and then sign it if they passed it?
Sure.
You're absolutely right. This was only supposed to be a temporary increase, and it was supposed to sunset and revert back to 4%. However, that did not happen. The administration wanted to keep it forever. And when you look at what the amount of revenues that was excess revenues that was made over the year, I believe they were looking already at almost $100 million in excess revenues. That's off the backs of the people. And that is really unacceptable. Government should be in the business of servicing our people with the needs, but not making a profit off the people. And would we sign it into law to revert it back to 4%? Absolutely. It's something that Governor Felix and I have always spoken about, and that it was only supposed to be a temporary increase that needs to go back to 4%.
Thank you. The Governor, Camacho, would like to comment on that.
Yes, well, certainly we support this. We would have to take a look at what's happening. I know recently the government, or GITA, in 2021, they refinanced a 2011 tax refund bond, and of course obligated the BPT as part of the original tax refund bond as a source of income. So there will be some pushback, definitely, with regard to arguments on whether or not this is acceptable and is it a violation of the bond covenants. But certainly it's worth taking a look at. And as I've said, we do support it. As Monty said, on Guam, it's very common to think of something as temporary but permanent, but that's not the case. It was meant in a very difficult time, and then with the sunset clause, the governor had stated that this is forever. So I tell you one thing: if you want the BPT to roll back from 5 to 4%, then you have to elect Camacho Ara and get the current administration out because they have absolutely refused to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any follow-up questions to this from the panelists? Seeing none, we will proceed to Ms. Joanne Ige regarding public and personal health and safety.
Thank you, Peggy. Continuation of the Public Health Emergency Declaration. The declaration of a public health state of emergency to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic was made in the spring of 2020. It is now the fall of 2022, and the state of emergency is still in effect. A bid scheduled to expire November 5th. The question is, discounting a year into the pandemic, which most people acknowledge as a public health emergency period, what is your team's position on the continuing extension of emergency powers into November 2022? Thank you.
Well, Senator, you can begin. All right.
Well, it's several times over the past year, we've, it was Bill 1136 that was introduced and passed by the legislature and vetoed by the governor, which would repeal the public health emergency. We tried to override it several times, and we were unsuccessful. You know, there's valid reasons why to maintain the emergency. You know, could be the supplemental benefits for SNAP, the higher FMAP percentage for Medicaid, the use of the National Guard. But there's a problem, and it's the lack of transparency. You know, we've been in this public health pandemic state of emergency since March of 2020. And, you know, we're already now in September of 2022. It just doesn't make sense why we continue to be in the state of emergency when I think we're already at 98% vaccinated, 99% vaccinated. Again, no one is wearing masks. There's no social distancing. People are having fundraisers. They're having activities. So, you know, this emergency declaration needs to end. And, you know, I wouldn't doubt it if it ends just before Election Day. Just my thoughts.
Well, you know, I'd have to say really that I can understand the first year that you would be in a state of emergency with regard to public health, but it is no longer a response to what is a public health emergency. It is now turned into a political response for Governor Liu to continue this state of emergency now 31 months running, close to going on 3 years. You know, it's as if when you think about even what Dr. Tom Shea had said, because she references the fact that this could jeopardize the SNAP monies, and the senator had mentioned also the FMAP percentages when it comes to Medicaid. So you can justify that, but those can also always be dealt with the Guam legislature and going to them and saying, all right, for this particular area, this is what we need it for, and declare it for that particular issue. But like Dr. Tom Shea said, if the purpose of a public health emergency is to get more money, then it should never end. And obviously, it has not ended. When you think of all that's going on right now politically, and you know, let's put on our political lenses here and take a look at what's happening with for example, the road paving programs that are ongoing. Not only are you looking at main intersections and main roads and main thoroughfares, which are definitely part of the 2030 Federal Highway Master Plan, but you're looking at even private neighborhoods with private easements that have been paved. I even asked one of the administrators of a particular neighborhood, how did this happen? Because in my time, we were asking your particular organization and ownership group for allowing us to come in and pave a particular road that services a certain nursery, but of course the neighborhood would not want to give up the easements to the government of Guam, even for that, and so we could not do it with these private easements, and yet we see it happening time and time again. And so it is definitely used. You have to understand that the governor has a tremendous amount of authority and power when it comes to procurement, the moving of resources, the moving of personnel, as she said, that we have no say. Well, definitely the legislature has had no say. The Republicans have tried to make a change, but it didn't happen. And so it is really just a political response to what's going on. And she should end this emergency and get the government of Guam back to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Will there be a follow-up question to this from the panelists? I see none. We're going to the question from the audience. It seems that this has been answered regarding the COVID-19 pandemic situation. May I ask the panelists if they have additional question to our candidates?
I think we should move on to the next question, Peggy.
Okay. That would be coming from President Liz.
Okay, new public hospital. The present administration has determined that we need to construct a new hospital and that the site will be at the former Eagles football field in Manila along Route 15. There is a debate in various sectors of our island community regarding the need for a new hospital facility rather than pursuing renovation our existing public hospital. Furthermore, certain factions in the medical community disagree with the selected location. Since your administration must lead the development of a new hospital, what is your team's position on the following issues? Do you believe Guam needs a new public hospital, or do you believe renovating the existing hospital is more viable? That's number one. And then number two, do you agree that the football field, Eagles football field, as the preferred location for the new proposed hospital? And the question, if it's a yes, why?
I'll begin. In my time, it's very interesting that we were able to, despite all of the physical challenges and the administrative challenges of the government of Guam with regard to Guam Memorial Hospital, we were able to get it JCAHO accredited for the first time in decades. And that was an amazing accomplishment. So when you look at what's happened over the last 3 years with this administration, they've let it crumble. And to the point where the only solution they have is, well, let's build $1 billion, what is it now, $1.4 billion hospital up at Eagle Field. Through the decades, GMH, which originally that location was owned by the Catholic Medical Center, it was then bought out by the government of Guam from the Archdiocese of Agana. I believe that a new hospital right now is a long shot. It is years away, and there's a lot of infrastructure that would have to go in, and there's at a tremendous expense. The immediate need is now. That is a very dangerous situation, at least with the physical structure of it for both the patients and the employees. And we have to come in, I believe, with an immediate fix to it. When you also think about all the ancillary services, all the clinics, all the everything related to healthcare, the Guam Surgery Center, when you think of all the different pharmacies, all the different clinics, the birthing centers and the like that are established in the Tumuning area in proper, and then you've got GRMC close by up north in Derito. It is designed to serve in this particular area the entire island. So I believe that it is more viable right now to renovate and improve the existing facility, and in the short term think of or in the midterm and long term then begin to plan for an eventual move. But we still have the old site of Oka Tumuning, the old hospital point, that can supplement and augment the current location that we have right now. And why aren't we also looking at the repair of the Central Public Health Center up in Manila? They've left it vacant, after the fire? What have they done to improve the Northern Public Health Center and the Southern Public Health Centers to augment the service, healthcare services of our government and the hospital? So that's what I believe on question A, Senator.
Yeah, I agree with Governor Camacho on why we need to keep it in Tamuning. And you know, renovating the current hospital, because when you look at reality, you're not going to build such a complex facility in 4 years, in 8 years. I mean, perfect example, Simon Sanchez has been on the drawing board for almost 10 years now, and still a shovel hasn't been turned to break ground and start building. And for us to even assume that we're going to build a hospital in the next 4 years, we need to actually start renovating the parts of the current Guam Memorial Hospital so that that can be a safe hospital for doctors, for patients, and for the staff there at the hospital that are currently there, because they know they're not going to be able to move in the next 4 to 6 years. And that's why, yes, they may say that, you know, renovating may cost more money, but when you look at what they did was they used the Army Corps of Engineers to I guess appraise what the cost or what the value would be to build versus renovate. And, you know, last time I checked with the Army Corps of Engineers, it's, you know, you're building to military specifications. So, you know, you're not just building a regular hospital, you're building a hospital that what the military perhaps would, their standards. So it would perhaps cost more than what a civilian hospital would cost. Look at GRMC. So, you know, these are the things that we need to look at and reevaluate. And that's what Governor Camacho and I are going to do, is we're going to go back to the table and just get to it, get to work so that the people at the hospital will be safe.
The last part of the question regarding the hospital, what funding mechanism do you intend to pursue for the construction of a new hospital or for the renovation of the existing hospital?
Well, the first thing I'd like to do is take that $300 million that's sitting in our bank and begin to apply it to address the many issues that we have, particularly the hospital. And in addition to that, public health and social services. I really feel that by saying I'm going to park $300 million in the bank and it's going to be reserved for the building of the hospital, allows that financial institution to park that money in the Federal Reserve as deposits earning right now 3.15%. That's justification to keep it there. We need to take that money out. It was intended to help the people of Guam. And one of the most important needs right now is the dire situation of our hospital. We can do a short-term fix and get that thing up and running, repair the maternity ward upon which there have been many concerns, the electrical panels that are ongoing, the HVAC system, and many other issues that may involve the structural. I think even the roof that's been cracked. And I mean, my gosh, if they cannot even fix a Ganya swimming pool and the Derrida swimming pool and get Simon Sanchez High School off the ground, how do you expect that they're going to build a brand new hospital up at Eagle Field that has no infrastructure that's there to speak of that can support this? I mean, when I stepped into office in 2003, the first thing we had to do was harden the infrastructure by running a substation from GPA right above the Hilton directly to the hospital, so that in case of any emergency shutdown or typhoon, you've got your power source up and running. And so you need a hardened infrastructure. What are the costs involved in bringing this in? Has GPA given an estimate? Has GWA given an estimate to do that? In addition to that, you've got the original landowner situation for those that claim Eagle Field is theirs, that it ought to go back to them. In addition to that, you've got a proposed missile site for the THAAD or the Defense System of Guam close by in that same general area. And so these are many issues that need to be resolved. We haven't been privy to all the information that they've gotten, consultant reports on what's there. But when we get in, we have to take a look at it and make the best decision. But for now, I'm going to take that $300 million that she's got parked in the bank and use it for the benefit of the people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to find out from the panelists for additional questions. Yes, Mr. Monty McDowell, then we go to Mr. John Duenas.
Back during your first term, Governor, I was asked through the Chamber of Commerce to go talk to agencies about privatization of non-core competencies. You know, that there's certain things that are inherently government, certain things that aren't, but it's hard for the local government to let loose of things and put it in the hands of the private sector, fear the loss of jobs, you know, that employee will end up in the private sector. Oh my God, that life has ended now, you know. So one of the agencies we went to and presented was Guam Memorial Hospital. And I can remember, I think it was David Simmons who was the manager of the hospital, and he wasn't interested and he had a million reasons why it didn't work. Dr. Chris Perez was the chairman of the board. And he concluded the meeting by saying, if it was up to me, I would stand at the door with the pink slips and let every employee at the hospital leave, and we privatize the management of the hospital. And until we do that, the hospital will always run negative and will never be efficient and never properly take care of the people in Guam. So we could talk about a new hospital. We could talk about the old hospital. But if we don't change county hospitals, territorial hospitals across the nation, whatever you want to call them, government-run hospitals, just don't work. They've closed them down, and the private sector is, you know, GRMC has had its challenges, and you know, it came to a pretty rough area to start a hospital. I maintained that hospital. I maintained Naval Hospital. A lot of it, you know, the privatization. You gotta run lean and mean. You gotta do what you gotta do, but the government doesn't got to do what it's got to do. It's just hard to change. Any comments would be appreciated.
Okay. Monty, I think you basically posed a very critical question. And from all you said, the question you're asking both Tony and I and the people of Guam is, should the government of Guam continue to be in the business of running and managing a hospital? Fortunately, we have GRMC that's privately run, and yeah, as you mentioned, you're well aware of having maintenance contracts on how things work. When the patient to employee ratio, the patient bed ratio to employee is pretty high for the government of Guam. I think it's double that of GRMC. I'm not sure or aware of what it is for Naval Hospital, but definitely that's one factor. I think another thing we need to think about too, we talked about a new hospital, would be should an opportunity come up for GRMC to be on the cell block? Is that something that might be a possibility? And if it was, who should run it and maintain it? But definitely the efficiencies of things being privately run are there. I have to point to the success that we had when we took Guam Telephone Authority and privatized it. Yeah, I was crucified. People were really upset, but we were able to find a way to transition their employees into the private sector, secure their retirement benefits, and work out another plan. But you look at GTA now, and they were able to be competitive. And the big challenge for them was, can we keep up with the pace of technology as a government agency with our procurement systems and all the challenges that we face? And the answer was no. So it made public sense to do that, or common sense to do that. And so when you look at the hospital, it has a mission to serve the people, and no one is turned away. But we've been at it now for 50, 60 years. And what are the lessons learned? We would certainly be open to thinking about different ways of doing things. And again, it's going to go through the legislature, through policymakers, the medical community, but we are open to looking at ways of doing things better and more efficient for the benefit of serving the people of Guam.
And perhaps,
Senator?
yeah, perhaps, Governor, what it can be is starting out with a PPP, a public-private partnership, then eventually, seeing how that goes for a couple of years, perhaps, and then completely turning it over to be operated privately. Are those options off the table? Absolutely not. I think we got to keep an open mind in how we deal with healthcare in this day and age, and what is it that the government can and cannot do. And perhaps those are one of the things that the government needs to start to step away from and start out with a public-private partnership.
Thank you very much. I think the next question, next follow-up question is coming from Mr. John Duenas.
Just an observation and then a final question. My observation is you kind of liken, if you look at the history of the government of Guam, you kind of liken it to a hermit crab. A hermit crab occupies the shell, but then when it kind of outgrows that shell, gets tired of it, moves on to another shell and just leaves that. You look at our pools, same way. You look at our public health center, same way. This has moved out. Many other examples. But my question is actually related to the study of the hospital, of the proposed new hospital up at Eagle Field. I don't know, I may be completely wrong about this. I don't know that there was an RFP out for that study. I understand it's being done by Matrix. And I don't know that they've engaged any local consultants to look at infrastructure. Maybe they have actually gone directly to the agencies. How do you know anything about how that contract was procured? And it appears to be done, but we don't know the results.
Could be it was procured.
What do you know
under
about that?
Emergency procurement under the public health declaration. Remember, we've been in this for 3 years now, so almost 3 years, and perhaps that's the avenue they use to do the procurement for the that site up there at Eagles Field. We don't know that I haven't even seen a plan for that hospital up at Eagles Field. Go.
Yeah, personally, I don't know how it was procured. I believe that the group you mentioned was contracted to do a study, perhaps I don't know if it would be called a feasibility study, looking at all potential sites for a hospital, whether it be up there in Manila at Eagle Field or the old hospital point at Oka Tumuning, the current site where the hospital is situated, or any other location, but we've not been privy to it. I just feel that perhaps the governor or the current administration wanted this to be a non-issue, and say, well, if the report is ready to go, just put a muzzle on it until after the election. But if there is one, it would be very, very wise, because that's money spent. I'm sure it's going to be a good amount of money spent on a study of that importance that the people of Guam need to see and understand, and the community, of course, the medical community and others would have to review this. John, and there's a definite need to consider the fact that there is so much expertise on this island with local firms too, that we need to engage because of the understanding of all that happens on this island, the history of things and how things have developed. So we need to first of all, anyway, get to that study and present it to all the experts out here also for their input, and then make decisions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those answers. I'd like to entertain a couple of questions from the audience. First one is, do you have any plans to increase the infrastructure of Guam, sewer, roads, other utilities, so that much of our undeveloped land can be utilized? If so, what would be the timeline and plan to development to development and fund these improvements?
Well, I want to begin by just reiterating and going back to what I talked about earlier with the sustainable or SUTA, which are substantially underserved trust areas, designation that could be given by the Department of Agriculture, the Secretary, and of course, administered or run by the Rural Utility Services. If we're able to get this designation, and if we haven't already, it provides a funding source of less than 2% for infrastructure, whether it be water, wastewater, power, telecommunications, and the like. If you understand what's going on with any kind of development project, especially whether it be private sector or government of Guam, I would like to take those and apply it to the areas of Chamorro Land Trust where lands have been given to recipients that benefited from this, but there's no infrastructure in place for them to develop it. If we're able to get this kind of funding at a low interest rates and then put in the infrastructure dealing with both GPA, GWA, and other telecommunication companies to bring in, lay out the roads and do a planned development with Chamorro Land Trust lands, it would benefit the homeowners because the system development fees that you got to pay right now for power, for water, for sewer, for roadways is extremely expensive. And that's a cost that's borne by anyone interested in building a home or any developer, which drives the cost up. And people wonder why are homes so unaffordable. It's because of our fees and the cost of putting in infrastructure. So qualifying for SUTA, going after these low interest loans that are even direct grants or guaranteed loans is one way to fund the infrastructure development. And once you lay that foundation, then you can begin to build. Thank you.
And there's still more federal funds that are coming in with the infrastructure bill that was passed and signed. So that will continue to allow us to improve on water systems or even, roads, continuing of fixing the roads and bridges. So that's what we look forward to as well, and looking how it be able to benefit the people of Guam. And not wait until an election year to push those things out. We'll get those things out immediately when we get into office.
Yeah, I do want to mention also that one of the largest ever civil utility projects undertaken on Guam is just occurred up there at the Northern Treatment Plant to service not only the buildup of Camp Blas and that military marine base, but also to service the northern and central part of Guam. Tremendous. So when we look at the collaboration and the partnership, and that was funded by the federal government, Department of Defense, we have to look at other opportunities. I've always said that the buildup is coming, and there's 1.2 to 2 billion a year for the next 10 years. It's happening. Many opportunities for jobs and the like, but we need to find ways of collaborating with the military community to be inclusive and not exclusive, and for the benefit of not only the Department of Defense, but the people of Guam. So I'll be looking for many opportunities together with the senator to provide these type of projects and provide the infrastructure needed for Guam. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Another question is, what will you do moving forward to ensure you are serving all of our island and not just for the benefit of Republican or Democratic parties?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear the question.
Yes. What will you do moving forward to ensure you are serving all of our island people and not just for the benefit of Republican or Democratic parties?
When Governor Camacho and I first got together, it was on the premise that we serve all our people, because we've seen what this past several years has done by separating, by pick and choosing, by isolating our people. And it was truly devastating. When Governor Camacho and I get into office, we're going to be in office for the people that elected us, the people that voted for us, the people that did not vote for us. We're going to be there for everyone. because everyone deserves the leadership of Camacho Ada, a leadership that's transparent, that is accountable, and that will be there for them when they need us.
Yeah. I do want to quote the good Senator Frank Ogden, and he says, "It's always people before politics."
Mhm.
See, because once you get into office, you're accountable to everybody, whether they voted for you or not. You're there, and you're there for 4 years at a time, and you've got your work cut out for you. So Tony and I have always understood that the cause is greater than Tony and Felix. The cause is greater than the Republic or Democrat Party. The cause is for our people and this island that has gone through a tremendous time of suffering and shutdown, where their lives and their freedoms have been taken away. They've been segregated. They were told to wear a mask. They were told to get vaccine. They were told to stay home. Don't go to church. Don't go to school. Don't go to work. And we've suffered tremendously. What took 50 years or 60 years to build up was crushed in 3.5 years. And so it's going to be a process of restoration. And you can't just pick and choose, well, they're a supporter or they're of this party or that party. No, everybody's in this together. And so we're there to serve because it's a greater cause. It's more than just he and I. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to serve all the people. So people before politics. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have reached the end of our town hall, and we'd like to ask both to communicate their closing remarks up to 3 minutes. Thereafter, I will defer it to our election chairman, Mr. John Duenas, and then our overall chairman, Mr. Monty McDowell, and our president will close. Thank you very much.
You want me to go? Well, to the Guam Association of Realtors, thank you so very much for having us here today. As you can see, Felix and I are working for the people. Felix and I will be there for the people. You can rest assured that with the Camacho Ada administration, you'll see transparency, you'll see responsibility, you will see accountability. We're here for everyone. And that's what you can see from us. I mean, we're Felix and Tony, and we showed up. So, we hope that you give us the opportunity to serve you, serve the people of Guam, and serve our island so that we'll be able to move forward from this devastation of these past couple of years and start to rebuild our community, start to rebuild our families, because we need to start with our families first and start to build them up so that our community can build as well before we start inviting all our tourists to come back. We need to get our island back to what it was prior to the pandemic, and even better. I don't think there's even a plan to open up our island. So, we're going to have this plan to open up our island and bring our tourists back, bring our families back who have decided to leave island for the States or wherever they went, all those families, so they can come back and say, you know what, I wanted to raise my family on Guam. So that's where I'm going back, because things are getting better. There is hope. So there is hope for our future and our island. Thank you.
Well, I just want to say thank you again to the Guam Association of Realtors for this wonderful opportunity to answer the many tough questions, and even after, following questions that you've presented to us. I really believe that we're here. It's a new season. It's a new season of hope. It's a new season of restoration. We've got to revive this island again. I mean, it was basically comatose and shut down. So we've got to, again, build the foundation upon which those that follow us can prosper. There will be tough times in the world, as you see ahead of us. All that's happening, wars, rumors of wars, economic upheaval, a lot of change in leadership that's happening. I think even in the nation as they go through this midterm election. But we are part of a great nation, the nation of the United States of America. And Guam is a territory in that we're playing our part. But we stand here right now and are going to be ensuring that we put people before politics. It's a wonderful privilege for me to step out of retirement and come back and offer myself as a candidate, together with a man that I've really come to respect and admire Senator Tony Ada, together with our wives, Joanne and, Annette, that are there. You've got a team, of people that are completely dedicated. And if any of you know them, they're going to give their heart and soul alongside us to serve. It's an opportunity to look at the leadership in Washington, an opportunity again to perhaps change the leadership in the Guam legislature. But you've known me. I've been able to collaborate and work with all. I am always open to ideas together with Tony, and we're here to serve. I'm just humbled, and I have done it before, and I will do it again. And lessons learned, wisdom comes with age. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm not that old yet, though, but I just have a real desire to come out and serve again. There's a greater cause, and there's a new season. Please vote Camacho Ada. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. John Duenas?
Thank you, candidates. You had the whole platform to yourselves this afternoon, and you took great advantage of it. Thank you for your answers. We wish you good luck on the campaign, and hope to see you on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Governor and Senator, it's a real honor to have you be with the Guam Association of Realtors. We have lots and lots of people not on the screen from the Guam Association of Realtors that were here listening to your every response. Very articulate. We're proud of both of you for stepping forward and running to serve the people at Guam. Done it before, you're willing to do it again. So thank you. And off to Liz Duenas, our president.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Senator Tony Ada, for appearing. On behalf of our 600 plus members, I want to thank you again, Jesus Masi, and wish you the best of luck. God bless that you make it into office. It's unfortunate we were unable to hear Governor Liu and Josh Tenorio, but you definitely took advantage of the platform. And again, the Guam Association of Realtors has always been vocal. Once you make it in office, we will be there right next to you, giving you our feedback, input. And of course, I think the same sentiment. It's all about our community, making a difference, and not about personal issue or ego. Working together to make things happen and making a difference for our community. Sidus Masi.
Thank you. Okay.
And with that, we end our 3-day live virtual town hall. Thank you very much for all the candidates that joined us, as well as all the realtors and the media and other public members who took the time to join us. Well, we will post our recorded version of our town hall in our website. Stay tuned for more details regarding that. Thank you, and all the best.
Thank you. God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.